Good evening all and welcome back to Untold Fears. Tonight we journey into the vast expanse of the open ocean, where luxury becomes nightmare and paradise transforms into prison. Cruise ships carry over 30 million passengers annually across waters where help is hours away, and the law operates differently than on land. When these floating cities encounter the unexplainable, when passengers vanish without trace, and when crew members discover things they were never meant to see, the stories that merge defy everything we thought we knew about safety at sea. 10 passengers and crew members have shared their accounts with us, each more disturbing than the last, each verified through incident reports and testimonies that maritime authorities cannot easily dismiss. These are not tales of rough weather or mechanical failure. These are encounters with forces that should not exist on vessels designed for pleasure and relaxation. If you are new here, make sure to subscribe to Untold Fears for daily true horror content that will keep you up at night. Hit that notification bell so you never miss when the darkness calls. Working cruise ship security for Royal Caribbean taught me that passenger incidents follow predictable patterns. Slip and falls on wet decking, minor thefts from staterooms, occasional medical emergencies requiring Coast Guard evacuation. After 18 months patrolling the Symphony of the Seas, I understood the rhythm of maritime security protocols. Guest services handles complaints, medical staff manages health incidents, and security addresses safety violations. Standard operating procedures exist for every scenario, from minor disputes to serious emergencies. What happened during our 7-day Western Caribbean sailing in March 2023 broke every protocol I had learned and created new ones that corporate never officially acknowledged. Jalen Morrison booked stateroom 8247 on Deck 8, a standard interior cabin measuring 150 square feet with twin beds, private bathroom, and no natural lighting. The passenger manifest showed her traveling solo, age 28, first-time cruiser from Portland, Oregon. She checked in at Fort Lauderdale without incident, presented valid identification, posed for her security photo, and received her SeaPass card, programmed for cabin access and onboard purchases. Embarkation proceeded normally. Her luggage cleared security screening, she attended the mandatory muster drill, and passenger services noted no special requests or dietary restrictions. Standard solo traveler profile. The first unusual report came from housekeeping on day 2. Maria Santos, who had cleaned staterooms on Deck 8 for 3 years, knocked on cabin 8247 for morning service and received no response. She used her master key to enter and found the room empty but disturbed. The twin beds were separated despite being configured together the previous day. Personal belongings were scattered across the floor, rather than organized in the provided storage compartments. The bathroom showed signs of recent use, but towels remained folded. Most concerning was the temperature. Interior cabins maintained consistent climate control at 72 degrees, but 8247 registered 64 degrees on the digital thermostat despite no guest adjustment requests. Maria reported the anomalies to her supervisor, who documented the incident and requested maintenance check the climate control system. Maintenance found no mechanical issues. The thermostat functioned properly and showed no unauthorized temperature changes in the system logs. They reset the unit to standard settings and marked the work order complete. When I reviewed the incident report that evening, it seemed minor. Solo travelers sometimes leave belongings disorganized, and climate control glitches occur even in well-maintained systems. I noted the report in my daily log and continued regular patrols. Jalen appeared for dinner that evening in the main dining room, Deck 3, Table 247, second seating at 8:30. The waitstaff noted she seemed tired but engaged normally with other guests at her assigned table. She ordered the prime rib special, drank 2 glasses of wine, and participated in table conversation about shore excursions planned for Cozumel the following day. Her dining companions later described her as friendly but reserved. asking questions about ship amenities and expressing excitement about her first cruise experience. Nothing unusual. She used her SeaPass card to purchase additional drinks at the piano bar around 10:15 and returned to her cabin before midnight, according to security footage. The second incident occurred on day 3. Jalen called guest services at 6:47 in the morning to report strange noises from the adjoining cabin 8249. She described rhythmic banging against the shared wall that continued for over an hour, preventing sleep. Guest services contacted security, and I responded to investigate. The passenger manifest showed cabin 8249 occupied by elderly couple Harold and Margaret Chen from Vancouver, quiet guests who had sailed with us twice before. When I knocked on their door at 7:15, Harold answered promptly, fully dressed despite the early hour. I explained the noise complaint and asked if they had experienced any disturbances. Harold seemed genuinely confused, stating they had slept soundly and heard nothing unusual. Margaret confirmed they had gone to bed around 10 o'clock and remained in their cabin until my arrival. I examined their stateroom and found no evidence of furniture movement, exercise equipment, or anything that could generate the banging sounds Jalen described. The cabin appeared undisturbed, with belongings organized normally and beds showing typical sleep patterns. I documented the incident as a potential misunderstanding and advised Jalen that her neighbors reported no unusual activity. Jalen insisted the noises had occurred exactly as described. She appeared genuinely distressed, not deceptive or attention-seeking. She provided specific details about the timing, duration, and pattern of the sounds that demonstrated careful observation rather than fabrication. Her concern seemed legitimate, but the physical evidence supported the Chen's account. I offered to move her to a different cabin if availability permitted, but she declined, preferring to remain in her assigned room. She asked if security cameras monitored the corridor outside her cabin. I confirmed that all public areas maintained surveillance coverage but could not provide specific footage without proper authorization protocols. The breakthrough came on day 4 when maintenance received an unusual work order. The passenger in cabin ADU-4A5, directly across the corridor from Jalen, reported that their television was receiving signals from an unknown source. Instead of the ship's closed-circuit entertainment system, their screen displayed what appeared to be live footage from another location on the vessel. The feed showed a corridor that matched Deck 8's layout, but with different carpet patterns and wall decorations. The timestamp in the corner showed the current date and time, confirming it was not archived footage. I accompanied the maintenance technician to investigate. The television in cabin A245 indeed showed the unauthorized feed. The footage appeared to be from a security camera, displaying a corridor view with stateroom doors numbered in the 8200 range. As we watched, a figure appeared in the frame moving between cabin doors. The person wore crew clothing but moved in an unusual pattern, stopping at each door and appearing to listen or look through the peepholes. The image quality was sufficient to see the individual, but not clear enough for positive identification. The maintenance technician attempted to restore normal programming, but found that the television was receiving the signal through the room's internet connection rather than the standard cable system. Someone had hacked into the ship's internal network and was broadcasting security footage to specific televisions. This represented a serious breach of both passenger privacy and ship security protocols. I immediately contacted the chief security officer and requested an emergency system audit. While technical staff investigated the network breach, I decided to monitor cabin 82487 more closely. The pattern of incidents suggested someone was specifically targeting Jalen or her location. The disturbed room, temperature anomalies, noise complaints, and now unauthorized surveillance footage all centered around her cabin area. Either she was experiencing genuine harassment from another passenger or crew member, or someone was conducting surveillance for unknown purposes. Both scenarios required immediate security response. I positioned myself in an alcove near the elevators on Deck 8, with a clear view of the corridor containing cabins 8245 through 8249. At 11:30 that night, I observed a crew member in maintenance uniform approaching cabin 82427. The individual used what appeared to be a master key to enter Jalen's room. I waited 3 minutes before approaching to determine if this was authorized maintenance or unauthorized entry. When I reached cabin 8247, I found the door slightly ajar and heard movement inside. I announced my presence as ship security and entered the room. The maintenance worker was examining the contents of Jalen's suitcase, which had been opened and searched systematically. Personal items were laid out on the bed in organized rows, photographed with a small camera, then returned to their original positions. The individual wore a legitimate maintenance uniform with proper identification badges, but their actions clearly violated passenger privacy and ship security protocols. I identified myself and demanded explanation for the unauthorized search. The crew member initially claimed to be responding to a work order for carpet cleaning, but could not produce the documentation when requested. When I asked for their employee identification number and department supervisor, they provided information that I later verified as false. The individual was not listed in the ship's crew manifest under the name provided, and the employee number did not exist in our personnel database. At this point, I realized I was dealing with either an imposter who had gained unauthorized access to the ship or a crew member operating under false identity for unknown purposes. I called for backup security personnel and requested that the individual remain in the cabin until their identity could be verified. Instead of complying, they attempted to leave, pushing past me toward the corridor. I followed protocol for detaining suspicious individuals and physically prevented their departure while radioing for immediate assistance. The confrontation revealed that the uniform, while authentic in appearance, contained subtle differences from standard crew attire. The name tag was printed rather than embroidered, the fabric weight was lighter than regulation uniforms, and the identification badge was a high-quality photocopy rather than an original issue. Most significantly, the individual carried equipment not standard for maintenance personnel, including surveillance devices, lockpicks, and data storage equipment that suggested intelligence gathering rather than ship maintenance. Security backup arrived within 4 minutes and secured the individual for questioning. A search revealed multiple passenger cabin keys, detailed floor plans of the ship's interior cabin layouts, and photographs of personal belongings from several staterooms. The evidence suggested systematic surveillance and possible theft preparation targeting multiple passengers, with Jalen's cabin serving as a primary focus for the operation. The individual refused to provide truthful identification or explain their presence on the ship. Fingerprint analysis through Coast Guard databases revealed no matches, suggesting either a sophisticated false identity or someone operating outside normal identification systems. The investigation expanded to determine how this person had gained access to the ship, obtained crew uniforms and equipment, and conducted surveillance operations for an unknown duration. Ship management immediately implemented enhanced security protocols, including additional corridor patrols, verification checks for all crew members, and passenger notifications about reporting suspicious activity. Jalen was moved to a different cabin with upgraded security measures and received full briefings about the investigation's progress. The incidents she had reported were validated as legitimate security concerns rather than passenger complaints. The investigation revealed that the unauthorized individual had been conducting surveillance operations for at least 4 days, targeting multiple solo female passengers in interior cabins on decks 7 and 8. The pattern suggested someone with detailed knowledge of ship layouts, passenger booking systems, and security procedures. Whether this represented organized criminal activity, intelligence gathering, or individual predatory behavior remained unclear when we reached port. Coast Guard officials boarded at our next port of call and took custody of the detained individual. The case was transferred to federal authorities for investigation under maritime law enforcement protocols. Passengers were informed that enhanced security measures would remain in effect for the remainder of the sailing, and anyone experiencing unusual incidents should report them immediately to ship security. Jalen completed her cruise without further incidents, but the experience fundamentally changed how I approach passenger security complaints. What initially appeared to be minor housekeeping anomalies and noise complaints revealed systematic surveillance and potential criminal activity. The incident demonstrated that cruise ship security must consider threats from unauthorized individuals who may infiltrate crew operations, not just passenger-related incidents. The official incident report classified the case as resolved with the individual's removal from the ship, but questions remained about how security protocols had been compromised and whether similar operations might be occurring on other vessels. Corporate security issued new guidelines for crew verification procedures and enhanced training for identifying sophisticated security breaches disguised as routine operations. For passengers booking interior cabins on cruise ships, this incident highlights the importance of reporting any unusual occurrences, no matter how minor they might seem. Changes in room temperature, unexplained noises, disturbed belongings, or any sense of being watched should be reported to ship security immediately. The interconnected nature of cruise ship systems means that individual incidents may be part of larger security threats that require professional investigation. The case file remains active in federal maritime enforcement databases, and the individual's identity was eventually determined through international law enforcement cooperation. However, the details of their background and motivations remain classified under ongoing investigation protocols. What matters for passenger safety is understanding that cruise ship security operates in a complex environment where threats can emerge from unexpected sources and require vigilant reporting to prevent escalation. 23 years working as a cruise director taught me that passenger confusion about ship layouts happens constantly. Modern cruise ships contain 15 to 18 decks, hundreds of staterooms, and dozens of public venues connected by corridors that can stretch the length of 3 football fields. First-time cruisers regularly get lost trying to locate dining venues, entertainment areas, or even their own cabins. The Norwegian Epic carries over 4,000 passengers, and guest services receives dozens of directions requests daily. What Kaylin Reeves reported during our Mediterranean sailing in October 2023 went beyond typical navigation confusion and challenged everything I understood about ship architecture and spatial design. Kaylin booked a balcony stateroom on Deck 9, Cabin 9847, for a 14-day repositioning cruise from Barcelona to Miami. Her passenger profile showed extensive cruise experience with multiple sailings over 8 years, indicating familiarity with ship layouts and standard operating procedures. She traveled alone, preferred late dining, and typically spent evenings in the observation lounges reading rather than attending shows or participating in organized activities. Experienced passengers like Kaylin rarely require assistance with ship navigation or basic amenities, which made her initial inquiry to guest services particularly noteworthy. On day 4 of the sailing, Kaylin approached the guest services desk around 9 in the evening to inquire about accessing what she described as the quiet deck with the library. She explained that she had discovered a peaceful reading area with comfortable seating and excellent lighting during her evening walks, but had difficulty locating it again. Guest services staff consulted the ship's deck plans and identified several possibilities, including the library on Deck 5, the observation lounge on Deck 14, and various quiet seating areas throughout the vessel. However, Kaylin insisted that none of these matched the location she had found. She provided specific details about the space that immediately caught my attention when guest services forwarded her inquiry. According to Kaylin, the area featured floor-to-ceiling windows spanning the entire forward section of the deck, providing panoramic ocean views unavailable elsewhere on the ship. The lighting came from unique fixtures she had never seen on other vessels, and the furniture consisted of individual reading pods rather than standard cruise ship seating arrangements. Most significantly, she stated that the elevator had stopped at Deck 7 to reach this location, despite Deck 7 being designated for crew quarters with restricted passenger access. I personally escorted Kaylin to review the ship's layout and clarify the confusion. The Norwegian Epic follows standard cruise industry design, with Deck 7 containing crew accommodations, administrative offices, and service areas not accessible to passengers without special authorization. Passenger elevators are programmed to skip Deck 7 entirely, displaying deck numbers from 6 to 8 without stopping at the intermediate level. The elevator control system prevents unauthorized access through both software restrictions and physical key card requirements for crew-only areas. When we rode the elevator together, Kaylin insisted on pressing the button for Deck 7, despite my explanation that passenger elevators do not service that level. To my surprise, the elevator acknowledged the request and began descending toward Deck 7. The display showed the deck number clearly, and the elevator stopped with the standard arrival chime. The doors opened to reveal a corridor that appeared identical to passenger areas on adjacent decks, complete with elegant carpeting, decorative wall treatments, and ambient lighting systems. I immediately recognized that this represented a serious security breach, as passenger elevators should never provide access to crew quarters without proper authorization. However, as we stepped into the corridor, I noticed subtle differences from standard ship design that were difficult to identify initially. The proportions seemed incorrect, with ceilings appearing higher than standard specifications and corridor width exceeding typical passenger areas. The carpet pattern matched designs used throughout the ship but contained color variations I had never observed during my years of familiarity with the vessel. Kaylin led me toward what she described as the library area located at the forward end of the deck. As we walked, I attempted to correlate our position with the ship's known layout, but the distances did not match my understanding of the vessel's dimensions. The corridor continued farther than should be physically possible, given the ship's actual length and the placement of other structures. When I mentioned this discrepancy, Kaylin seemed genuinely puzzled by my concern, stating that the layout appeared normal to her. The library area that Kaylin had described did exist exactly as she had reported. The space featured expansive windows, providing panoramic forward views, unique lighting fixtures, and individual reading pods arranged in a comfortable seating configuration. However, according to my knowledge of the ship's design, this location should have been occupied by crew quarters and administrative offices, not passenger amenities. The architectural details were consistent with the ship's overall design aesthetic, but the space configuration did not match any known deck plans or renovation records. I used my radio to contact the bridge and request confirmation of our location using the ship's internal positioning systems. The response indicated that, according to electronic monitoring, I was located in crew quarters on Deck 7, in an area designated as administrative offices. However, the physical space we occupied clearly functioned as a passenger library with no resemblance to typical crew accommodations or office configurations. The discrepancy between electronic records and physical observation was unprecedented in my experience. To verify the situation, I contacted the ship's chief engineer and requested that he join us to examine the space. When he arrived, 15 minutes later, via the crew elevator system, he confirmed that the area had always served as administrative offices and expressed confusion about our presence in what he described as restricted crew space. However, he was standing in the same physical location where Kaylin and I observed the library. Yet his description of the environment differed completely from our direct observation. The engineer described a typical office layout with desks, filing cabinets, and standard fluorescent lighting, while we observed comfortable reading furniture, decorative fixtures, and panoramic windows. When I asked him to identify specific objects in the room, his descriptions did not correspond to anything we could see. Similarly, when we described the library furniture and windows, he insisted that no such items existed in the location where we stood. We were occupying the same physical space, but experiencing completely different environments. This impossible situation continued for approximately 30 minutes, during which we conducted various tests to understand the discrepancy. Photographs taken with our personal devices showed the library configuration that Kalen and I observed, but the engineer's photographs, taken simultaneously from the same positions, displayed office spaces matching his descriptions. When we compared the images, they showed completely different environments despite being captured from identical locations at the same time. The engineer's radio communications with other crew members confirmed that Deck 7 maintained its standard configuration with no unusual activity or unauthorized access incidents. From the crew's perspective, the deck functioned normally, with all systems operating according to specifications. However, from our passenger perspective, we were accessing a library facility that should not exist according to the ship's official design documents and crew knowledge. I decided to document the phenomenon by conducting a systematic exploration of the entire deck. Using my master keycard, which provides access to all passenger areas and most crew sections, I attempted to map the layout we were experiencing against the known ship configuration. The passenger-accessible version of Deck 7 contained multiple spaces that had no equivalent in the official crew deck, including the library, a small cafe area, additional observation lounges, and extended corridors connecting these amenities. The mapping exercise revealed that the passenger version of Deck 7 was significantly larger than should be physically possible within the ship's actual dimensions. The corridors extended beyond the ship's hull, boundaries according to architectural specifications, and the total square footage exceeded what could be contained within the available space. Yet the areas felt completely solid and real, with no indication of illusion or structural impossibility from our direct experience within the space. During our exploration, we encountered 3 other passengers who were utilizing various amenities on this version of Deck 7. They appeared completely comfortable with the environment and expressed no confusion about accessing the deck through passenger elevators. When questioned, they provided consistent descriptions of the spaces that matched our observations, indicating that multiple passengers had discovered and were regularly using these impossible facilities. I attempted to locate these other passengers later, using the ship's passenger manifest and cabin assignments, but encountered significant difficulties. The names they provided did not match exactly with registered passengers, though similar names existed in the system. Their cabin numbers corresponded to valid staterooms, but when I contacted those rooms, the occupants had no knowledge of visiting Deck 7 or using library facilities. This suggested that the passengers we encountered were either providing false information or were somehow different from the registered passengers with similar identities. The investigation expanded when I realized that the phenomenon was not limited to Kalen's experience. A review of guest services inquiries over the previous 6 months revealed multiple reports of passengers discovering amenities and spaces that did not correspond to official ship layouts. These reports had been individually dismissed as passenger confusion or misdirection, but when analyzed collectively, they suggested a pattern of passengers accessing facilities that should not exist according to architectural specifications. Corporate headquarters requested a comprehensive technical inspection when I submitted my initial report. Naval architects and marine engineers conducted detailed surveys of Deck 7 using electronic measuring equipment, structural analysis tools, and comparative assessments against original construction specifications. Their findings confirmed that the deck maintained standard crew configurations with no unauthorized modifications or architectural anomalies. All measurements corresponded exactly to design documents, and no evidence supported the existence of additional passenger facilities. However, the technical inspection team reported unusual equipment malfunctions and measurement inconsistencies during their surveys. Electronic distance measuring tools provided readings that varied significantly when repeated from identical positions. Structural analysis equipment detected load-bearing configurations that did not match visual observations of the space. Most significantly, team members reported occasional glimpses of furniture and fixtures that should not exist in crew quarters, though these observations could not be documented or verified through standard investigative methods. The situation created practical complications for passenger services and safety protocols. If passengers were accessing unauthorized areas through elevator malfunctions or security breaches, the ship could face regulatory violations and liability issues. However, if passengers were experiencing genuine but unexplained phenomena, the appropriate response was unclear. Maritime safety regulations do not address situations where passenger experiences differ from objective reality, and corporate policies provide no guidance for managing impossible architectural configurations. We implemented a compromise solution that acknowledged the passenger reports without officially recognizing the impossible aspects of their experiences. Kaylin and other passengers who reported accessing the alternative Deck 7 were advised that the areas they described were subject to operational changes and might not be consistently available. Guest services staff were instructed to provide alternative recommendations for similar amenities located in verified passenger areas of the ship. The official incident report classified the situation as a series of passenger orientation issues, exacerbated by elevator programming irregularities that occasionally provided access to crew areas. Technical recommendations included enhanced security protocols for crew-only deck access and improved passenger education about ship layout and available amenities. No mention was made of the architectural impossibilities or measurement discrepancies encountered during the investigation. Kaylin completed her cruise without further incident, though she mentioned during disembarkation that she had continued to use the Deck 7 library throughout the remainder of the sailing. She expressed disappointment that the facility would not be available on future cruises, suggesting that her access to the space remained consistent from her perspective. Other passengers who had reported similar experiences also indicated continued utilization of the impossible amenities. The case highlighted limitations in standard investigative approaches when dealing with phenomena that challenge basic assumptions about physical reality and spatial configuration. Traditional maritime safety protocols assume that ship architecture remains consistent and verifiable through standard measurement and observation techniques. When passenger experiences contradict these assumptions, the existing framework provides no effective method for resolution or explanation. Subsequent sailings on the Norwegian epics have generated occasional similar reports, though at reduced frequency following the implementation of enhanced passenger orientation procedures. The ship continues to operate normally according to all technical specifications and safety standards, with no official recognition of architectural anomalies or impossible spaces. However, guest services staff have been trained to acknowledge passenger reports of unusual areas while redirecting them to verified amenities. For passengers experiencing unusual spatial configurations or accessing areas that seem inconsistent with ship layouts, the recommended approach is to report these experiences to guest services for assistance with orientation and alternative amenity recommendations. While the underlying causes of such experiences remain unexplained, Passenger safety and satisfaction can be maintained through appropriate support and alternative options for desired activities and facilities. 8 years working as a junior marine engineer aboard Celebrity cruise line vessels taught me that engine room operations follow strict protocols and predictable patterns. The main propulsion systems, auxiliary generators, and navigation control systems operate under constant monitoring with documented procedures for every operational scenario. Engine room communication systems connect directly to the bridge through redundant channels, and all voice transmissions are recorded for safety and operational review. The Celebrity Constellation carries over 3,000 passengers on a sophisticated vessel, with integrated computer systems managing everything from course corrections to fuel consumption. What I experienced during our transatlantic crossing in November 2023 challenged everything I understood about marine communication protocols and ship navigation systems. My assignment placed me in the engine control room during the night watch from midnight to 8 in the morning, monitoring propulsion systems and responding to bridge commands for course adjustments and speed modifications. The ECR serves as the operational heart of the ship, with direct communication lines to the bridge, backup navigation systems, and emergency override capabilities for all major ship functions. Standard watch procedures require monitoring main engine parameters, generator load distribution, and fuel consumption, while maintaining communication logs for all bridge interactions and system status changes. On our third night at sea, approximately 400 miles northeast of the Azores, I received an unusual communication through the bridge intercom system. The voice, which I initially assumed belonged to the officer of the watch, requested a course correction of 15 degrees to starboard, along with a reduction in engine speed from 22 knots to 18 knots. The request followed standard communication protocols with proper identification codes and technical specifications that matched normal bridge operational procedures. I acknowledged the command and began implementing the requested course and speed adjustments through the engine room control systems. The course correction required coordination with the steering gear controls and adjustment of the propulsion load distribution between the main engines. Speed reduction involved gradually decreasing engine RPM while monitoring fuel flow and maintaining optimal operational parameters. These procedures typically take 8 to 10 minutes to complete safely, during which I maintained communication with the bridge to confirm implementation progress. However, when I contacted the bridge to confirm completion of the course and speed changes, the officer of the watch expressed confusion about my report. According to bridge records, no course correction orders had been issued to the engine room within the previous 2 hours. The current heading remained unchanged from the original navigation plan, and no speed adjustments were scheduled until the following morning. The officer requested immediate verification of our actual course and speed through independent navigation systems. Bridge navigation instruments confirmed that the ship had indeed changed course by 15 degrees and reduced speed to 18 knots, exactly matching the commands I had received and implemented. However, the bridge crew had no record of issuing these orders and could not explain how the course and speed changes had occurred without their authorization. The navigation officer reviewed all communication logs, watch reports, and automated system records, but found no documentation of the commands that I had clearly received and executed. This discrepancy represented a serious breach of maritime safety protocols, as engine room operations should never proceed without proper bridge authorization and documentation. Course changes without bridge knowledge could compromise navigation safety, particularly in shipping lanes with heavy traffic or areas with navigational hazards. Speed modifications affect arrival schedules, fuel consumption calculations, and coordination with port authorities for docking procedures. I provided a detailed account of the communication I had received, including the specific voice characteristics, communication protocols used, and technical specifications of the requested changes. The voice had used standard maritime terminology, proper identification procedures, and demonstrated knowledge of ship systems that indicated familiarity with bridge operations. However, when compared to recordings of actual bridge communications from previous watches, the voice patterns did not match any current bridge officers or other crew members authorized to issue engine room commands. The captain was immediately notified of the incident and ordered a comprehensive investigation of all communication systems, navigation equipment, and engine room control protocols. Technical staff conducted detailed inspections of the intercom systems, radio equipment, and computer networks to identify potential sources of unauthorized communications or system malfunctions that could explain the mysterious commands. The investigation revealed that all communication systems function normally with no evidence of external interference, unauthorized access, or technical malfunctions. Voice recording equipment had captured my responses to the commands but showed no record of the incoming transmissions that had prompted my actions. This created an impossible situation where I had clearly responded to communications that had no verifiable source or technical explanation. During the investigation, I was asked to recreate the incident by describing the exact procedures I had followed and the specific commands received. As I reviewed my actions, I realized that the course and speed changes I had implemented were not arbitrary but represented optimal navigation adjustments for the weather conditions and sea state we were experiencing at the time. The course correction moved us away from an area of rough weather that we encountered several hours later, and the speed reduction improved fuel efficiency while maintaining our arrival schedule. Further analysis revealed that the unauthorized course and speed changes had prevented our encounter with severe weather conditions that would have required similar adjustments if we had maintained the original navigation plan. Maritime Weather Services confirmed that our original course would have taken us through an area of heavy seas and strong winds that developed unexpectedly during the night. The course correction had kept us in calmer waters, and the speed reduction had allowed us to maintain schedule while avoiding the worst weather conditions. This raised disturbing questions about the source and purpose of the communications I had received. If the commands had not originated from the bridge or any authorized crew member who had issued them, and how had they known about the developing weather conditions before they became apparent to the bridge crew and navigation systems? The technical specifications and timing of the commands suggested knowledge of weather patterns, ship capabilities, and navigation requirements that exceeded normal crew expertise. The investigation expanded to include analysis of satellite weather data, shipping traffic information, and communication intercepts from other vessels in the area. No evidence was found of external communications that could have provided the specific course and speed information I had received. Other ships in the vicinity reported normal weather conditions and routine navigation procedures with no unusual communications or system anomalies. Corporate headquarters requested additional technical support when the initial investigation failed to provide explanations for the incident. Marine electronics specialists conducted comprehensive testing of all communication equipment, navigation systems, and computer networks using advanced diagnostic tools and signal analysis equipment. Their findings confirmed that all systems operated within normal parameters, with no evidence of interference, hacking, or unauthorized access. However, the technical team discovered unusual electromagnetic readings in the engine control room during their testing procedures. The readings suggested intermittent signal sources that did not correspond to any known ship systems or external communication equipment. These signals appeared at irregular intervals and could not be reproduced or traced to specific sources. The patterns were inconsistent with normal maritime communication protocols or natural electromagnetic phenomena. During my subsequent watches, I maintained heightened awareness of all communications and implemented additional verification procedures for any commands received through the intercom system. 2 weeks later, while monitoring systems during another night watch, I received a second communication that followed similar patterns to the first incident. The voice requested minor course adjustments to avoid what it described as traffic convergence in our current shipping lane. This time, I immediately contacted the bridge to verify the commands before implementing any changes. The bridge confirmed that they had issued no such orders and requested that I ignore the communications while they investigated the source. However, bridge radar systems detected 3 large vessels approaching our position from different directions, creating a situation that would require course adjustments to maintain safe separation, distances exactly as the unauthorized communication had indicated. The bridge ultimately issued official course correction orders that matched the unauthorized communications I had received. The timing and specifications were nearly identical, suggesting that the mysterious voice had provided accurate navigation information several minutes before it became apparent to bridge personnel through standard detection systems. This pattern indicated that the source of the communications possessed advanced knowledge of shipping traffic and navigational hazards. Subsequent incidents followed similar patterns, with unauthorized communications providing accurate information about weather conditions, traffic situations, or mechanical issues before they became apparent through normal monitoring systems. The voice consistently used proper maritime terminology and demonstrated detailed knowledge of ship operations, but never identified itself or explained the source of its information. The official incident reports classified these occurrences as communication system anomalies requiring ongoing technical monitoring. Enhanced verification procedures were implemented for all bridge communications, and additional recording equipment was installed to capture any unusual transmissions. Crew members were instructed to report any communications that could not be verified through normal channels. The investigation remained active throughout the remainder of my contract aboard the Celebrity Constellation, but no conclusive explanations were developed for the source or nature of the unauthorized communications. The voice continued to provide accurate navigation and operational information at irregular intervals, always preceding official bridge commands that confirmed the validity of the information provided. From an operational perspective, the incidents improved navigation safety by providing advance warning of potential hazards and optimal course corrections. However, the inability to identify the source or verify the authorization of these communications created ongoing security concerns about potential breaches of ship communication systems or unknown monitoring of vessel operations. For marine engineers and bridge personnel, these experiences highlight the importance of maintaining strict verification procedures for all operational commands while remaining alert to unusual communication patterns that might indicate system vulnerabilities or external interference. The integration of modern ship systems with satellite communications and computer networks creates potential access points for unauthorized communications that may not be immediately apparent through standard security monitoring. Current maritime safety protocols assume that all operational communications originate from verified sources within the established chain of command. When communications provide accurate operational information from unidentified sources, existing procedures offer limited guidance for appropriate responses. The balance between operational safety and security concerns requires careful consideration when dealing with unauthorized but potentially beneficial communications. The case demonstrates the complexity of modern maritime operations, where advanced communication systems, automated navigation equipment, and global monitoring capabilities create environments where traditional assumptions about communication sources and authorization procedures may not adequately address all possible scenarios encountered during routine vessel operations. 15 years working as a senior security analyst for Carnival Corporation taught me that passenger overboard incidents follow established patterns and predictable response protocols. Modern cruise ships carry sophisticated man-overboard detection systems, closed-circuit television coverage of all exterior areas, and crew training programs designed to maximize recovery success rates. When someone goes over the rail, automated systems trigger immediate alerts, search and rescue procedures activate within minutes, and detailed documentation captures every aspect of the response effort. The Carnival Horizon maintains exemplary safety records with comprehensive monitoring systems and experienced crew members who have successfully managed emergency situations throughout their careers. What happened during our Southern Caribbean sailing in January 2024 challenged every assumption I held about passenger safety protocols and raised questions about gaps in our surveillance capabilities that I never imagined could exist. Jaslyn Martinez booked a 7-day cruise departing from Miami, traveling solo in a standard balcony stateroom on Deck 6. Her passenger profile indicated routine cruise experience with 4 previous sailings over 3 years, suggesting familiarity with ship safety procedures and standard operational protocols. She maintained regular communication with family members through the ship's internet systems, participated in scheduled activities, and followed normal passenger behavior patterns throughout the first 3 days of the sailing. Guest services recorded no complaints, medical staff had no interactions with her, and security systems showed typical passenger movement patterns consistent with someone enjoying a relaxing vacation. On the 4th day of the cruise, while the ship sailed between Barbados and St. Lucia, approximately 60 miles from the nearest coastline, Jaslyn disappeared. Her absence was first noticed when she failed to appear for a shore excursion departure in St. Lucia that she had specifically booked and prepaid 2 days earlier. Shore excursion staff attempted to contact her through the cabin telephone system and shipwide public announcements without receiving any response. When guest services personnel conducted a welfare check at her stateroom using master key access, they found the cabin empty with personal belongings undisturbed and no indication of planned departure or emergency situation. Standard missing passenger protocols require immediate notification of ship security, comprehensive searches of all public areas and restricted zones, and activation of man-overboard detection systems to review recent alerts and surveillance footage. I initiated these procedures within 20 minutes of receiving the initial report, coordinating with deck officers, housekeeping supervisors, and maintenance crews to conduct systematic searches of the entire vessel while reviewing electronic systems for any indication of passenger overboard incidents. The initial search revealed no trace of Jaslyn in passenger areas, crew quarters, restricted zones, or service areas throughout the ship. Her stateroom showed no signs of struggle, forced entry, or hasty departure. Personal items remained organized in standard configurations, and her planned shore excursion clothing was laid out on the bed as if she had prepared for the morning activity before disappearing. Most significantly, her cabin door had been properly secured from the inside when guest services accessed the room, indicating that she had left voluntarily and manually locked the door behind her. Security camera reviews presented the first major inconsistency in the investigation. Our surveillance systems maintain continuous coverage of all corridors, elevator areas, stairwells, and public spaces with digital recording capabilities that store footage for 30 days. However, when I reviewed the recorded footage from Jaslyn's corridor and the surrounding areas, I discovered unexplained gaps in the coverage that coincided precisely with the time frame of her disappearance. The digital recording system showed normal operation until 11:47 on the evening of January 15th, capturing routine passenger traffic and standard corridor activity. At 11:48, the recordings from Deck 6, Section B, where Jaslyn's stateroom was located, displayed corrupted data that appeared as static interference, lasting exactly 14 minutes. During this period, no usable footage was available from 8 different camera positions that provided comprehensive coverage of the area surrounding her cabin. Technical staff immediately examined the surveillance equipment to determine the cause of the recording interruption. All camera hardware functioned normally, with no evidence of mechanical failure, electrical problems, or physical tampering. The digital storage systems operated within standard parameters, and other sections of the ship maintained perfect recording continuity throughout the same time period. The interference appeared to be localized specifically to the cameras monitoring Jaslyn's immediate area, suggesting either sophisticated electronic disruption or unprecedented system malfunction. Man overboard detection systems presented additional complications when I attempted to review automated alerts and sensor activations. The Carnival Horizon utilizes advanced motion detection technology that monitors the water surrounding the vessel for any objects or individuals that enter the ocean from the ship. These systems are designed to provide immediate alerts when passengers or crew members fall overboard, triggering search and rescue protocols within seconds of detection. However, the man overboard systems showed no alerts, sensor activations, or recorded incidents during the time frame surrounding Jaslyn's disappearance. If she had gone over the rail through accidental fall or intentional action, the detection systems should have registered the event and initiated automatic response procedures. The absence of any man overboard alerts suggested either that she had not entered the water or that the detection systems had failed to function properly during the critical time period. Coast Guard notification procedures require immediate reporting of missing passengers when initial searches fail to locate individuals and reasonable evidence suggests possible overboard incidents. I contacted the United States Coast Guard Rescue Coordination Center in Miami to report Jaslyn's disappearance and request search and rescue assistance. Coast Guard officials dispatched aircraft and surface vessels to conduct systematic searches of the ocean areas where the ship had traveled during the estimated time frame of her disappearance. The search and rescue operation continued for 72 hours, covering over 1,500 square miles of ocean with multiple aircraft, 2 Coast Guard cutters, and commercial vessels that responded to maritime assistance requests. Despite optimal weather conditions and comprehensive search patterns, no trace of Jaslyn was discovered in the water, on life rafts, or along nearby coastlines. The negative search results supported the technical evidence suggesting that she had not entered the ocean through normal overboard scenarios. While Coast Guard operations continued, I expanded the investigation to examine alternative explanations for Jaslyn's disappearance. The possibility of unauthorized departure at a previous port seemed unlikely given that passenger manifests and immigration records showed no indication of her leaving the ship during scheduled stops. However, I reviewed security footage from all port calls and shore excursion activities to verify her continued presence aboard the vessel until the time of her disappearance. Shore excursion records confirmed that Jaslyn had participated in scheduled activities in both Curaçao and Aruba, returning to the ship before departure deadlines and using her passenger identification card to reboard through standard security checkpoints. Immigration officials at both ports verified that she had not attempted to leave the ship permanently or expressed intentions to discontinue her cruise. Her behavior during shore excursions appeared normal according to tour guides and other passengers who interacted with her during group activities. The investigation took an unexpected direction when I discovered that Jaslyn's passenger identification card had been used to access various ship facilities after the time when she was reported missing. Card reader logs showed activity in the fitness center, library, and buffet restaurant during the hours when search efforts were actively seeking her throughout the vessel. These electronic records suggested either that she was somehow avoiding detection during comprehensive searches, or that Her identification card was being used by someone else. I immediately expanded security measures to include surveillance of areas where her card had registered activity, positioning additional personnel in locations with recent card usage, and implementing enhanced monitoring of electronic access systems. However, subsequent card activity ceased entirely once enhanced surveillance was initiated, suggesting awareness of security procedures that would be unusual for a missing passenger experiencing medical emergency or disorientation. Technical analysis of the card reader data revealed anomalies that complicated the investigation further, while the access logs showed clear records of Jaslyn's identification card being used at various facilities. The timing and sequence of the activities suggested movement patterns that would be physically impossible for a single individual. For example, card records showed nearly simultaneous usage at the fitness center on Deck 12 and the library on Deck 5, locations that would require at least 8 minutes to travel between using elevators and standard walking pace. These impossible movement patterns indicated either sophisticated card cloning technology or systematic manipulation of the electronic access systems by someone with detailed knowledge of ship security protocols. Either scenario represented serious security breaches that extended beyond simple missing passenger incidents and suggested more complex criminal activity or technical compromise of ship systems. Corporate security headquarters assigned additional investigative personnel when my initial reports indicated potential security system breaches and possible criminal activity. The investigation team included cybersecurity specialists, access control technicians, and experienced maritime security consultants with expertise in complex shipboard criminal cases. Their arrival coincided with the discovery of additional evidence that fundamentally changed the direction and scope of the investigation. During a comprehensive review of passenger manifests and crew records, investigators discovered that 3 other passengers had reported unusual incidents during the same sailing that shared characteristics with Jaslyn's disappearance. These passengers had experienced temporary memory gaps, confusion about their whereabouts during specific time periods, and difficulty accounting for several hours of their activities during the cruise. None had been reported missing, but their experiences suggested a pattern of incidents that might be related to Jaslyn's case. Interviews with these passengers revealed disturbing similarities in their experiences. Each reported feeling unusually tired and disoriented during evening hours, followed by periods of time for which they had no clear memory. They described waking up in their staterooms with no recollection of how they had returned or what activities they had participated in during the previous hours. Most significantly, their passenger identification cards showed usage patterns during these memory gaps that they could not explain or verify through personal recollection. Medical staff conducted voluntary examinations of these passengers and discovered trace amounts of pharmaceutical compounds in their blood samples that were consistent with sedative substances not prescribed through the ship's medical facility. The dosages were sufficient to cause disorientation and memory impairment, but not dangerous enough to require emergency medical intervention. The presence of these substances suggested that the passengers had been deliberately drugged, possibly for the purpose of accessing their identification cards or conducting other unauthorized activities. The investigation expanded to include toxicology analysis and examination of food and beverage service areas where the affected passengers might have consumed contaminated items. Bar staff, restaurant servers, and room service personnel were interviewed to identify potential sources of the pharmaceutical substances and determine how unauthorized drugs had been introduced into passenger consumption. During this phase of the investigation, security personnel discovered a sophisticated identity theft and fraud operation being conducted by a group of individuals who had gained unauthorized access to passenger identification systems. The perpetrators were using cloned passenger cards to access ship facilities, charge expenses to passenger accounts, and conduct other fraudulent activities while the legitimate cardholders were sedated and unable to monitor their accounts or movements. Jaslyn's disappearance was ultimately determined to be the result of an overdose reaction to the sedative substances administered as part of this criminal operation. Unlike other passengers who had received smaller doses designed to cause temporary disorientation, she had apparently received a fatal amount that resulted in cardiac arrest. The perpetrators had disposed of her body at sea during the surveillance system blackout that they had engineered to avoid detection of their activities. Law enforcement officials arrested 5 individuals, including 2 crew members and 3 passengers with false identities, who were responsible for the identity theft operation and Jaslyn's death. The case revealed sophisticated criminal activity that had been operating for several months across multiple sailings, targeting solo passengers who were less likely to be immediately missed by traveling companions. The official investigation report resulted in comprehensive changes to passenger identification security systems, enhanced surveillance monitoring protocols, and improved crew background checking procedures. Additional safeguards were implemented to prevent unauthorized access to security systems and electronic monitoring equipment. Enhanced medical screening procedures were established to detect unauthorized pharmaceutical substances in passenger blood work during routine medical care. For solo cruise passengers, Jaslyn's case highlights the importance of maintaining regular communication with family members, utilizing ship security services when experiencing unusual symptoms or disorientation, and reporting any suspicious activities or individuals to ship security immediately. The interconnected nature of modern cruise ship systems creates vulnerabilities that sophisticated criminals can exploit, making passenger awareness and cooperation with security protocols essential for maintaining safety. The criminal organization responsible for Jaslyn's death and the identity theft operation received federal prosecution under maritime law enforcement provisions. Their conviction resulted in significant prison sentences and established precedents for addressing complex shipboard criminal activities that involve multiple jurisdictions and sophisticated technology-based fraud schemes. However, the case demonstrated that cruise ship security systems require continuous evolution to address emerging criminal techniques and maintain passenger safety in an increasingly complex operational environment. 12 years managing shore excursion operations for Princess Cruises taught me that passenger transportation between ship and shore follows rigid safety protocols with multiple redundancy systems. Modern cruise ships carry certified tender boats capable of handling challenging weather conditions, experienced crew members trained in maritime safety procedures, and communication equipment that maintains constant contact with the mothership when vessels anchor in ports that cannot accommodate direct docking. Tender operations become essential for passenger access to shore destinations. The Crown Princess maintains exemplary safety records with comprehensive tender management systems and crew members who have successfully completed thousands of passenger transfers throughout their careers. What happened during our Mediterranean sailing in September 2023 challenged every assumption I held about shore excursion safety protocols and raised questions about maritime search and rescue capabilities that continue to disturb my understanding of passenger protection procedures. Indiana Williams joined our 12-day Mediterranean cruise as part of a cultural heritage tour group, booking passage from Rome to Barcelona with scheduled stops in Naples, Sicily, French Riviera ports, and Barcelona. Her passenger profile indicated extensive international travel experience, including previous cruise sailings, suggesting familiarity with shore excursion procedures and standard safety protocols. The tour group consisted of 24 passengers interested in archaeological sites, historical landmarks, and cultural experiences requiring transportation to destinations not accessible from standard cruise ports. On day 7 of the sailing, the Crown Princess anchored approximately 2 miles offshore from Portofino, Italy, due to harbor depth restrictions that prevented direct docking at the municipal pier. Tender operations commenced at 8 in the morning with 4 certified tender boats providing continuous shuttle service between the ship and shore. Each tender carried up to 50 passengers, plus 3 crew members, including a certified boat operator, safety officer, and passenger coordinator responsible for managing embarkation and disembarkation procedures. Indiana's tour group was assigned to the 3rd tender departure, scheduled for 9:15, along with 26 additional passengers traveling independently to various shore destinations. The tender boat, Princess Express III, departed the ship on schedule with 49 passengers and 3 crew members, following standard route procedures that typically required 18 minutes for the journey to Portofino's designated passenger landing area. Communication protocols required tender operators to maintain radio contact with the ship's deck operations every 10 minutes during transit, confirming passenger count, weather conditions, and estimated arrival times. The Princess Express III provided its initial status report at 9:25, indicating normal operations with favorable weather conditions and on-schedule arrival. However, the tender failed to provide the required second status report at 9:35, and subsequent radio contacts from deck operations received no response. I immediately initiated missing tender protocols when radio communications could not be established with Princess Express III. These procedures require confirmation of tender position through visual observation, coordination with other tender boats in the area, and contact with Italian Coast Guard authorities if the vessel cannot be located within 15 minutes of the scheduled communication check. Visual scanning from the ship's upper decks and bridge wings failed to locate the tender along its designated route or in the Portofino harbor area. The other 3 tender boats operating in the area were contacted to assist with locating Princess Express III and providing passenger counts and crew status reports. All 3 vessels confirmed normal operations with no sightings of the missing tender boat despite traveling the same route within minutes of each other. Italian Coast Guard authorities were notified of the missing tender situation at 9:52, and search and rescue operations commenced immediately with multiple aircraft and surface vessels deployed to locate the missing boat and passengers. Search operations focused on the water area between the Crown Princess and Portofino, expanding outward to account for possible course deviations due to mechanical problems or navigation errors. Helicopter overflights provided comprehensive coverage of the coastal area, nearby islands, and open water zones where the tender might have drifted if experiencing engine failure. Surface vessels conducted systematic searches using sonar equipment and visual observation techniques designed to locate disabled boats or emergency situations. The initial search phase continued for 6 hours with optimal weather conditions, calm seas, and excellent visibility that should have enabled easy location of a 50-foot tender boat carrying 49 passengers and 3 crew members. However, no trace of Princess Express III was discovered despite comprehensive search patterns covering over 100 square miles of coastal waters and nearby maritime areas. During the search operations, I reviewed passenger manifests and crew assignments to verify the identity and background information for all individuals aboard the missing tender. Indiana's tour group included experienced travelers from various locations across the United States, ranging in age from 45 to 72, with no individuals requiring special medical attention or having restrictions that would complicate emergency procedures. The independently traveling passengers showed similar profiles with standard cruise demographics and no unusual characteristics that would suggest higher risk factors. Crew members assigned to Princess Express III included boat operator Marco Salvetti, an Italian maritime professional with 18 years of experience operating tender boats for major cruise lines. Safety Officer Patricia Chen held advanced certifications in maritime rescue procedures and had completed over 2,000 tender operations without incident. Passenger Coordinator James Morrison possessed extensive hospitality experience and specialized training in managing passenger emergencies and evacuation procedures. Communication records were analyzed to determine if Archer Princess Express III had experienced equipment malfunctions or emergency situations that prevented radio contact with the ship. All tender boats maintained multiple communication systems, including primary VHF radios, backup communication equipment, and emergency signaling devices designed to function even if primary systems failed. The complete absence of any distress signals or emergency communications suggested either catastrophic equipment failure or circumstances that prevented crew members from operating standard safety equipment. Italian maritime authorities expanded the search area when initial operations failed to locate any trace of the missing tender boat or its occupants. Additional aircraft, surface vessels, and coastal observation posts were activated to provide comprehensive coverage of the Ligurian Sea and adjacent coastal areas. Search patterns were adjusted to account for ocean currents, wind patterns, and potential drift scenarios that might have carried a disabled tender boat away from its intended route. On day 2 of the search operations, Italian Coast Guard aircraft located debris approximately 12 miles northwest of Portofino that appeared consistent with tender boat equipment. The debris included life preservers marked with Princess Cruises identification, fragments of fiberglass consistent with tender boat construction, and personal items that matched passenger belongings reported by family members of missing individuals. However, no survivors, bodies, or intact sections of the tender boat were recovered despite intensive search efforts in the debris location. The debris pattern suggested that Princess Express III had experienced catastrophic structural failure resulting in rapid sinking and dispersal of passengers and crew over a wide area. However, maritime engineers who examined the recovered debris found no evidence of explosion, collision, or mechanical failure that would typically cause such complete destruction of a modern tender boat. The fiberglass fragments showed characteristics consistent with gradual deterioration rather than sudden impact or structural collapse. Search and rescue operations continued for 8 days with resources provided by Italian Coast Guard, French maritime authorities, and international rescue coordination centers. Despite deploying advanced sonar equipment, underwater remote vehicles, and systematic searches of the ocean floor in areas where debris was located, no trace of the tender boat hull, passengers, or crew members was ever discovered. Corporate headquarters assigned accident investigation teams when initial search operations failed to provide explanations for the tender boat's disappearance. Marine safety experts, tender boat manufacturers, and maritime accident specialists conducted comprehensive analysis of maintenance records, operational procedures, and safety equipment specifications to identify potential causes for the incident. Their investigation revealed that Princess Express III had undergone complete safety inspections 3 weeks prior to the incident, with all systems certified as operational and compliant with international maritime safety standards. Weather analysis confirmed that conditions during the tender's departure and scheduled transit time were optimal for passenger transportation with calm seas, light winds, and unlimited visibility. No storms, unusual currents, or hazardous conditions existed that would pose risks to normal tender operations or passenger safety during the timeframe of the disappearance. Investigation teams examined the possibility of criminal activity, including piracy, kidnapping, or terrorist actions that might explain the complete disappearance of the tender boat and all occupants. However, no credible threats had been reported in the Mediterranean region, and no organizations claimed responsibility for actions against cruise ship operations. The complete absence of ransom demands, political statements, or criminal communications suggested that the disappearance was not the result of intentional hostile actions. Alternative theories considered during the investigation included navigation errors that caused the tender to travel to unknown locations, mechanical failures that resulted in rapid sinking before distress signals could be transmitted, and collision with uncharted objects or vessels that caused catastrophic damage. However, none of these scenarios adequately explain the complete absence of survivors, debris patterns, or emergency communications that would typically accompany such incidents. The official accident report classified the incident as an unexplained maritime accident with contributing factors that could not be determined based on available evidence. The investigation concluded that Princess Express III and all 49 passengers and 3 crew members were lost at sea during routine tender operations under normal weather conditions for reasons that remain unknown. Families of the missing individuals received official declarations of presumed death after the standard waiting period required by maritime law. Enhanced safety protocols were implemented following the incident, including mandatory GPS tracking systems for all tender boats, increased frequency of communication checks during passenger transportation, and additional safety equipment requirements for vessels operating in areas where immediate rescue assistance might not be available. Crew training programs were expanded to include enhanced emergency communication procedures and passenger evacuation techniques for catastrophic scenarios. However, the fundamental questions raised by Indiana's disappearance and the loss of all 49 passengers and 3 crew members aboard Princess Express III remain unanswered. The incident demonstrated limitations in maritime search and rescue capabilities when vessels disappear completely without transmitting distress signals or leaving recoverable evidence of their fate. For passengers booking shore excursions that require tender boat transportation, the case highlights the importance of understanding the inherent risks of maritime travel and the limitations of safety protocols when facing unprecedented emergency situations. While tender operations maintain exceptional safety records with millions of successful passenger transfers annually, the complete disappearance of Princess Express III serves as a reminder that ocean environments contain risks that cannot be entirely eliminated through safety procedures and emergency preparedness. Current maritime safety regulations assume that disabled vessels will remain afloat long enough for distress communications and rescue operations, and that accident sites will provide recoverable evidence for investigation purposes. When these assumptions prove incorrect, existing safety frameworks offer limited protection for passengers and crew members who face circumstances beyond the scope of standard emergency procedures. The case files for the Princess Express III incident remain active with Italian maritime authorities and international accident investigation organizations. Periodic searches continue in areas where additional debris might be located, and monitoring systems maintain alert status for any evidence that might provide explanations for the unexplained disappearance of 49 passengers and 3 crew members during routine shore excursion operations. 7 years working as a safety compliance officer for Royal Caribbean International taught me that emergency drills follow mandatory international maritime safety protocols with precise timing, documentation, and passenger participation requirements. The Safety of Life at Sea Convention mandates that all cruise ships conduct regular muster drills where passengers learn evacuation procedures, life jacket usage, and emergency assembly protocols. These drills are scheduled during daylight hours, announced through shipwide communication systems, and attended by all passengers and crew members with detailed records maintained for regulatory compliance. The Voyager of the Seas maintains exemplary safety records with comprehensive emergency preparedness systems and crew training programs that exceed international maritime safety standards. What Dalen Crawford experienced during our Western Caribbean cruise in April 2024 challenged everything I understood about emergency drill procedures and raised questions about passenger safety protocols that continue to influence my approach to maritime emergency management. Dalen booked a standard interior stateroom on Deck 6 for a 7-day cruise departing from Fort Lauderdale, traveling solo as part of a post-graduation celebration following completion of his engineering degree. His passenger profile indicated no previous cruise experience, making him unfamiliar with ship safety procedures and standard operational protocols. Guest services provided him with comprehensive orientation materials during embarkation, including emergency procedure information, muster station assignments, and safety equipment locations throughout the vessel. On the third night of the sailing, while the ship traveled between Cozumel and Jamaica, approximately 150 miles from the nearest coastline, Dalen was awakened at 2:37 in the morning by the general alarm system. The 7 short blasts, followed by 1 long blast, indicated a mandatory emergency drill requiring all passengers and crew to report immediately to assigned muster stations for evacuation procedures. Emergency lighting activated throughout the ship, and public address announcements directed passengers to dress warmly, collect life jackets, and proceed to designated assembly areas. Standard emergency drill procedures require passenger participation during scheduled daytime hours when visibility is optimal and crew members are available at full staffing levels. Midnight emergency drills are extremely unusual and typically reserved for actual emergency situations requiring immediate passenger evacuation. However, the public address announcements specifically identified the event as a mandatory safety drill with standard participation requirements and safety procedure demonstrations. Dalen retrieved his life jacket from the stateroom storage compartment and proceeded to muster Station E on Deck 4, his assigned emergency assembly area according to the information provided during embarkation. The corridors were filled with passengers moving toward their designated stations, guided by crew members positioned at key intersections and stairwells. Emergency lighting provided adequate illumination, and passenger flow proceeded in an orderly manner consistent with practiced emergency procedures. Upon reaching Muster Station E, Dalen found approximately 200 passengers gathered in the designated assembly area along with safety officers, conducting standard emergency drill procedures. The crew members demonstrated life jacket usage, explained evacuation routes, and provided information about emergency procedures using the same format and content delivered during regular daytime safety drills. The presentation appeared completely normal except for the unusual timing and late-night scheduling. During the safety demonstration, I conducted my routine compliance inspection of muster stations to verify proper crew procedures, passenger participation levels, and equipment functionality. However, when I reached Muster Station E to observe the drill procedures and document attendance numbers, I found the designated area completely empty with no evidence of passenger assembly or crew activity. The emergency lighting was not activated in that section, and no safety drill was in progress at that location. This discrepancy was immediately concerning because passenger safety regulations require precise documentation of emergency drill participation, crew assignments, and equipment usage for regulatory compliance purposes. I contacted the bridge to verify the emergency drill status and confirm whether Muster Station E was participating in the scheduled safety procedures. The officer of the watch reported that no emergency drill was in progress and no general alarm had been activated during the night watch period. Bridge records confirmed that the ship's emergency systems showed normal operational status with no alarms, drill activations, or passenger notifications issued since the previous evening's routine safety announcements. The general alarm system, public address equipment, and emergency lighting controls all indicated standard overnight operations with no emergency drill procedures initiated by authorized crew members. I immediately contacted other safety officers to verify emergency drill status throughout the ship and determine if unauthorized drill procedures were being conducted by crew members without proper authorization. All safety stations reported normal overnight operations with no emergency drills, passenger assemblies, or unusual activities occurring in their assigned areas. The ship was maintaining standard overnight operational procedures with minimal crew staffing and normal passenger rest periods. The situation required immediate investigation because unauthorized emergency drills could create safety hazards, passenger confusion, and regulatory violations if procedures were not properly managed by qualified crew members. I proceeded to muster Station E to verify the status and determine if Dalen's experience represented equipment malfunction, unauthorized crew activity, or passenger misunderstanding of ship operations. When I reached Muster Station E, I found Dalen standing alone in the designated assembly area wearing his life jacket and appearing confused about the absence of other passengers and crew members. He insisted that he had participated in a complete emergency drill with approximately 200 other passengers and multiple crew members conducting safety demonstrations. According to his account, the drill had lasted 35 minutes and concluded with standard dismissal procedures directing passengers to return to their staterooms. However, the physical evidence at Muster Station E contradicted Dalen's detailed account of recent drill activity. The assembly area showed no signs of recent occupancy by large groups of passengers. Emergency equipment remained in standard overnight storage configurations, and safety demonstration materials were secured in normal positions rather than deployed for active use. Most significantly, the emergency lighting system had not been activated in that section, and the area remained at normal overnight illumination levels. I requested that Dalen provide additional details about his experience to help resolve the discrepancy between his account and the physical evidence at the muster station. He described specific crew members who had conducted the safety demonstrations, including detailed descriptions of their uniforms, safety equipment, and presentation procedures that matched standard Royal Caribbean emergency drill protocols. His knowledge of the procedures was accurate and comprehensive, suggesting genuine participation in properly conducted safety training. The crew members that Dalen described were consistent with actual safety officers assigned to Muster Station E during scheduled daytime emergency drills. However, when I verified their locations during the time frame of his experience, all identified crew members were confirmed to be off duty and in their quarters during the night watch period. None had been assigned to emergency drill duties, and shift schedules showed no personnel authorized to conduct passenger safety procedures during overnight hours. Security footage review provided additional complications when I attempted to document passenger movement and crew activity in the areas surrounding Muster Station E. The recorded surveillance showed Dalen leaving his stateroom at 2:41 in the morning and proceeding directly to the muster station area. However, the footage showed him walking alone through corridors that appeared empty of other passengers, contrary to his description of hundreds of passengers moving toward assembly areas. The surveillance recording showed Dalen arriving at Muster Station E and remaining in the area for 38 minutes, which matched his account of the drill duration. However, the footage showed him standing alone in the assembly area with no other passengers or crew members visible during the entire period. The emergency lighting was not activated, and no safety demonstrations or equipment deployments occurred according to the recorded evidence. Most disturbing was the audio analysis of the surveillance recordings, which captured clear sound from the muster station area during Dalen's presence. The audio included his responses to instructions, questions about safety procedures, and acknowledgments of demonstration activities that were completely consistent with standard emergency drill participation. However, the recordings contained no corresponding audio from the crew members or other passengers he described, suggesting that he was responding to communications that were not captured by the surveillance equipment. Medical staff conducted a comprehensive evaluation of Dalen to determine if his experience could be explained by medical conditions medication effects, or psychological factors that might cause hallucinations or disorientation. The examination revealed no evidence of drug or alcohol use, no medical conditions affecting cognitive function, and no psychological symptoms indicating mental health issues that would explain vivid hallucinations of detailed emergency drill participation. Dalen's account remained consistent throughout multiple interviews and showed detailed knowledge of emergency procedures that exceeded what would be expected from a first-time cruise passenger who had received only standard orientation materials. His descriptions of crew protocols, safety equipment usage, and drill procedures were accurate and comprehensive, suggesting genuine exposure to professional safety training rather than imagined or fabricated experiences. The investigation expanded to include analysis of ship systems that might explain unusual electromagnetic phenomena, communication equipment malfunctions, or environmental factors that could create sensory experiences not captured by standard surveillance equipment. Technical specialists examined emergency communication systems, public address equipment, and alarm systems to identify potential sources of audio transmissions that might have reached Dalen without activating normal recording systems. During this technical analysis, specialists discovered irregular electromagnetic readings in the vicinity of Muster Station E that occurred during the time frame of Dalen's experience. The readings suggested signal sources that did not correspond to any known ship systems or communication equipment. These signals appeared to be concentrated in the assembly area and occurred at frequencies that might affect human perception while remaining undetectable by standard surveillance equipment. Additional investigation revealed that Muster Station E was located directly above the ship's main communications array and adjacent to high-powered navigation equipment that operated continuously during ocean transit. The combination of these electronic systems created complex electromagnetic environments that could potentially generate unusual signal patterns or interference effects not normally encountered in other areas of the ship. However, electromagnetic specialists could not definitively explain how such conditions might create the comprehensive sensory experience that Dalen described, including visual, auditory, and interactive elements that matched actual emergency drill procedures. The technical analysis provided potential explanations for unusual environmental conditions, but did not account for the detailed knowledge and procedural accuracy that characterized his account. The official incident report classified Dalen's experience as an isolated passenger incident with contributing factors that could not be determined based on available evidence. Enhanced monitoring equipment was installed in the Muster Station E area to detect any unusual electromagnetic activity or equipment malfunctions that might affect passenger experiences. Additional crew training was implemented to address passenger reports of unusual experiences and provide appropriate support and documentation procedures. Following the incident, Dalen completed his cruise without additional unusual experiences and expressed satisfaction with the investigation procedures and crew support provided during the resolution process. However, he maintained that his participation in the midnight emergency drill had been completely real and accurately described, despite the absence of corroborating evidence from surveillance systems or crew documentation. The case highlighted limitations in standard investigation approaches when passenger experiences involve sensory phenomena that cannot be verified through conventional monitoring systems. Emergency drill procedures assume that all participant activities will be observable and documented through established surveillance and record-keeping systems. When passenger reports describe detailed experiences that leave no verifiable evidence, existing protocols provide limited guidance for appropriate responses. For passengers experiencing unusual events during cruise ship operations, the case demonstrates the importance of reporting incidents to crew members immediately while maintaining detailed personal records of times, locations, and specific observations. Ship investigation procedures rely on multiple forms of evidence to verify passenger reports, and detailed documentation can assist in identifying patterns or environmental factors that might explain unusual experiences. Current maritime safety regulations assume that emergency procedures will be conducted only by authorized personnel using standard equipment and protocols that can be verified through established monitoring systems. When passenger experiences suggest emergency activities that occur outside these parameters, existing safety frameworks may not provide adequate explanations or appropriate response procedures for crew members managing passenger concerns. The electromagnetic anomalies detected in the Muster Station E area remain under ongoing monitoring, and technical specialists continue to analyze potential connections between ship system operations and unusual passenger experiences. While no definitive explanations have been developed, the investigation provided valuable insights into complex interactions between modern ship systems and passenger perception that may influence future safety protocol development and crew training procedures. 9 years working as head of guest services for Holland America Line taught me that passenger security concerns follow predictable patterns with established investigation procedures and resolution protocols. Modern cruise ships maintain comprehensive security systems, including electronic keycard access controls, corridor surveillance cameras, and crew training programs designed to prevent unauthorized access to passenger accommodations. When guests report security breaches or stateroom intrusions, standard protocols require immediate investigation, evidence collection, and coordination with law enforcement authorities when criminal activity is suspected. The MS New Amsterdam maintains exemplary security records with advanced access control systems and experienced security personnel who have successfully managed guest safety concerns throughout their careers. What Talon Brooks reported during our Alaska Inside Passage cruise in June 2024 revealed systematic security vulnerabilities that challenged every assumption I held about passenger accommodation safety and exposed criminal activity that had been operating undetected for months. Talon booked a veranda suite on Deck 7 for a 7-day Alaska cruise departing from Seattle, traveling with her elderly mother as part of a family reunion celebration. Her passenger profile indicated extensive cruise experience with multiple previous sailings, suggesting familiarity with ship safety procedures and standard security protocols. The suite featured enhanced amenities, including separate living areas, premium furnishings, and upgraded security features that provided additional privacy and comfort for guests preferring higher-end accommodations. On the third night of the cruise, while the ship sailed through the protected waters of the Inside Passage, approximately 50 miles from Juneau, Talon awoke at 3:47 in the morning to discover an unknown individual in her stateroom's living area. The person appeared to be systematically searching through personal belongings while her mother slept in the adjacent bedroom. The intruder wore what appeared to be standard crew uniform clothing and moved with familiarity, suggesting knowledge of suite layouts and passenger behavior patterns. Talon remained quiet while observing the intruder's activities to avoid alerting the person to her awareness and potentially creating a dangerous confrontation situation. The individual conducted methodical searches of luggage, personal items, and travel documents while using a small flashlight to avoid activating room lighting that might wake the occupants. The search appeared focused on specific types of items, including jewelry, electronics, and financial documents rather than random theft activities. After approximately 12 minutes of observation, Talon activated the suite's emergency communication system to contact ship security without alerting the intruder to her awareness of their presence. The emergency system connects directly to the security office and provides immediate response capabilities for guest safety situations requiring urgent intervention. However, When she pressed the emergency assistance button, no response was received from security personnel, and the communication system appeared to be non-functional. The intruder completed their search activities and departed the suite through the main entrance using what appeared to be a standard crew key card for access control. The person moved efficiently and quietly, suggesting extensive experience with unauthorized stateroom entry procedures and knowledge of guest behavior patterns during overnight hours. The total time spent in the suite was approximately 15 minutes, indicating systematic rather than opportunistic criminal activity. Once the intruder departed, Talon immediately contacted guest services through the suite's telephone system to report the security breach and request immediate security response. However, the guest services desk reported that they had no record of emergency communication attempts from her suite, and the emergency assistance system showed no activation alerts during the reported time frame. This discrepancy suggested either equipment malfunction or deliberate interference with security communication systems. I responded personally to investigate Talon's security report because suite-level accommodations receive priority attention for guest safety concerns, and unauthorized access to premium accommodations represents serious security breaches requiring immediate administrative response. Upon reaching the suite at 4:23 in the morning, I conducted comprehensive interviews with both Talon and her mother to document the incident details and assess the extent of potential criminal activity. Talon provided detailed descriptions of the intruder's appearance, clothing, equipment, and behavior patterns that demonstrated careful observation during a stressful situation. Her account included specific details about crew uniform characteristics, search methodologies, and access procedures that indicated genuine exposure to professional criminal activity, rather than confused or fabricated reporting. Her mother confirmed hearing unusual sounds during the night, but had attributed them to normal ship operations rather than unauthorized intrusion. Physical examination of the suite revealed subtle evidence supporting Talon's account of unauthorized search activities. Personal items showed slight displacement from their original positions. Luggage zippers were repositioned despite not being opened by the occupants, and travel documents appeared to have been examined and photographed based on fingerprint evidence and slight creasing patterns. Most significantly, high-value jewelry and electronics remained untouched, suggesting that theft was not the primary motivation for the intrusion. Electronic access logs for the suite showed authorized entries only by Talon and her mother using their assigned passenger key cards, with no record of crew access or maintenance activities during the time frame of the reported intrusion. However, technical analysis revealed that the access control system had experienced brief connectivity interruptions during the night that coincided with the timing of the unauthorized entry. These interruptions appeared to be deliberate rather than accidental system malfunctions. Security camera footage from the corridors surrounding Talon's suite provided partial confirmation of her account, while raising additional concerns about systematic security breaches. The recordings showed a crew member moving through the area during the reported time frame, but the individual's face was obscured by uniform clothing and positioning that prevented clear identification. The person's movement patterns and timing were consistent with Talon's observations of the intruder's activities. However, the crew member captured in the security footage was not assigned to any authorized duties in that section of the ship during the night watch, and their uniform showed subtle inconsistencies with standard Holland America crew attire. The differences included non-regulation accessories, modified insignia, and equipment that was not issued to crew members working in passenger accommodation areas. These discrepancies suggested either unauthorized crew activity or sophisticated impersonation of ship personnel. Investigation of crew scheduling and duty assignments revealed no legitimate reason for any crew member to be in the vicinity of Talon's suite during the overnight hours when the intrusion occurred. Housekeeping services, maintenance activities, and guest services operations were not scheduled in that section during the night watch, and no emergency responses or special requests had been logged that would require crew presence in the area. The investigation expanded when I discovered that Talen's incident was not isolated, but part of a pattern of similar reports from other passengers staying in premium accommodations throughout the ship. Guest services records showed multiple complaints about disturbed belongings, unusual noises during overnight hours, and suspected unauthorized access to suites and staterooms over the previous 3 months. These reports had been individually investigated and dismissed as passenger confusion or housekeeping misunderstandings. However, when analyzed collectively, the reports revealed systematic targeting of specific accommodation types and passenger demographics that suggested coordinated criminal activity rather than random incidents. The targeted staterooms were predominantly premium suites occupied by elderly passengers traveling with valuable personal items, suggesting knowledge of passenger profiles and accommodation assignments that indicated inside information from crew sources. Technical analysis of access control systems throughout the ship revealed sophisticated manipulation that had been occurring for months without detection by standard security monitoring procedures. The perpetrators had developed methods for bypassing electronic keycard controls, disabling surveillance recording capabilities, and interfering with emergency communication systems to prevent detection during unauthorized intrusions. The breakthrough in the investigation came when security personnel discovered modified key cards in the possession of crew members who were not authorized to access passenger accommodation areas. These cards had been reprogrammed to provide universal access to premium suites and staterooms while bypassing security logging systems that normally document all crew access activities. The modification required technical expertise and administrative access that indicated involvement by personnel with detailed knowledge of ship security systems. Corporate security specialists were brought aboard at the next port to conduct comprehensive investigation of the criminal operation and identify all individuals involved in the systematic security breaches. The investigation revealed a complex scheme involving multiple crew members who had been conducting unauthorized searches of passenger accommodations to gather intelligence for identity theft, financial fraud, and targeted robbery activities both during and after cruise sailings. The criminal operation involved photographing personal documents, recording financial account information, collecting data about valuable personal items, and gathering intelligence about passenger travel plans and home addresses for use in coordinated criminal activities. The information was being transmitted to associates on shore who used it to conduct identity theft, financial fraud, and residential burglary operations targeting cruise passengers during and after their vacations. Law enforcement authorities arrested 8 individuals, including crew members, shoreside associates, and administrative personnel who had provided insider information about passenger profiles and accommodation assignments. The criminal network had been operating for over 18 months across multiple ships and had victimized hundreds of passengers through identity theft, financial fraud, and residential burglary operations conducted using information gathered during unauthorized stateroom intrusions. The investigation revealed that traditional security measures, including key card access controls and surveillance cameras, were inadequate protection against sophisticated criminal operations involving insider knowledge and technical expertise. The perpetrators had developed systematic methods for defeating standard security systems while avoiding detection through careful timing and knowledge of crew operational procedures. Enhanced security protocols were immediately implemented, including upgraded access control systems, enhanced surveillance monitoring capabilities, improved crew background investigation procedures, and additional security personnel assigned to premium accommodation areas during overnight hours. Guest education programs were expanded to inform passengers about recognizing and reporting suspicious activities that might indicate security breaches or criminal activity. The official investigation report resulted in industry-wide changes to cruise ship security protocols, including enhanced crew screening procedures, improved access control technology, and mandatory security audits to identify vulnerabilities that could be exploited by criminal organizations. The case demonstrated that passenger security requires continuous evolution to address emerging threats and sophisticated criminal techniques that target the unique operational environment of cruise ships. For passengers staying in premium accommodations, Talen's experience highlights the importance of maintaining awareness of personal belongings, reporting any signs of unauthorized access or disturbance immediately to ship security, and utilizing available security features, including safes, locks, and emergency communication systems. The interconnected nature of cruise ship operations creates opportunities for criminal activity that requires passenger cooperation with security protocols to maintain effective protection. The criminal organization responsible for the systematic security breaches and identity theft operations received federal prosecution under maritime law enforcement provisions and racketeering statutes that address organized criminal enterprises. Their convictions resulted in significant prison sentences and established legal precedents for prosecuting complex criminal operations that target cruise ship passengers through sophisticated security system, compromises, and insider information abuse. 16 years working as a navigation officer for Norwegian Cruise Line taught me that ship positioning systems operate with precision accuracy, using multiple redundant technologies including GPS satellites, electronic chart displays, and traditional celestial navigation backup procedures. Modern cruise ships maintain continuous monitoring of their position through integrated bridge systems that coordinate with automatic identification systems, weather routing services, and port traffic control authorities to ensure accurate navigation throughout all phases of voyage operations. When course deviations occur, they result from intentional navigation decisions made by qualified bridge officers following established maritime safety protocols. The Norwegian Epic maintains exemplary navigation records with state-of-the-art positioning equipment and experienced deck officers who have successfully managed complex itineraries throughout international waters. What happened during our transatlantic repositioning cruise in October 2023 challenged every assumption I held about navigation system reliability and raised questions about electronic positioning accuracy that continue to influence my approach to maritime navigation procedures. Dion Patterson served as third officer aboard the Norwegian Epic during the 14-day repositioning voyage from Barcelona to Miami, working bridge watches and maintaining navigation logs under my supervision as senior navigation officer. His duties included monitoring automated navigation systems, updating electronic chart displays, and coordinating with port authorities for arrival scheduling and pilot boarding arrangements. The repositioning cruise carried minimal passengers, allowing for enhanced focus on navigation training and system maintenance during the extended ocean transit period. On day 8 of the voyage, while sailing approximately 600 miles southwest of the Azores in the North Atlantic, Dion reported unusual discrepancies in the ship's electronic positioning systems during his 4 to 8 morning watch. The primary GPS navigation display indicated our position as approximately 400 miles northeast of our actual location, according to celestial navigation calculations and dead reckoning positions derived from course and speed logs. This represented a significant deviation that exceeded normal GPS accuracy parameters and suggested potential system malfunctions requiring immediate investigation. Standard navigation procedures require cross-verification of electronic positioning data, using multiple independent systems to ensure accuracy and identify potential equipment failures that could compromise navigation safety. I immediately initiated comprehensive system checks, including GPS receiver diagnostics, electronic chart system verification, and comparison with backup navigation equipment to determine the source and extent of the positioning discrepancies that Dion had identified. The investigation revealed that all electronic navigation systems displayed consistent positioning data that placed the ship approximately 400 miles northeast of our calculated position based on traditional navigation methods. The GPS receivers showed strong satellite signals with normal accuracy indicators. Electronic chart systems displayed appropriate depth soundings and navigation hazards for the indicated position, and automatic identification systems broadcast our location to other vessels based on the electronic positioning coordinates. However, celestial navigation fixes using sun and star sightings consistently placed the ship in a location that corresponded to our planned course track and expected position based on departure time, course headings, and speed calculations. The celestial navigation positions were verified through multiple observations by different officers using independent sextants and chronometers, confirming accuracy within standard navigational tolerances for traditional positioning methods. This created an unprecedented situation where electronic navigation systems unanimously indicated one position, while traditional navigation methods consistently indicated a different position separated by several hundred miles of ocean. Both positioning methodologies appeared to be functioning normally according to their respective accuracy standards, yet they provided contradictory information about the ship's actual location in the North Atlantic. The captain was immediately notified of the navigation discrepancies and ordered comprehensive diagnostic procedures for all electronic navigation equipment while implementing enhanced manual navigation watches to maintain accurate position monitoring through traditional methods. Technical specialists conducted detailed analysis of GPS receivers, electronic chart systems, and integrated bridge equipment to identify potential sources of systematic errors or equipment malfunctions. During the diagnostic procedures, technicians discovered that the ship's GPS receivers were receiving signals from satellite sources that appeared to be providing false positioning data. The satellite signals showed normal strength and quality characteristics, but the positioning calculations derived from these signals were systematically offset from the ship's actual location by approximately 400 miles in a northeasterly direction. GPS spoofing represents a sophisticated electronic warfare technique that involves broadcasting false satellite signals to deceive navigation equipment and cause vessels to calculate incorrect positions while believing their systems are functioning normally. However, GPS spoofing typically affects limited geographic areas and is associated with military operations or territorial disputes in specific regions. The occurrence of systematic GPS spoofing in the middle of the North Atlantic was unprecedented and suggested unknown sources of electronic interference. Investigation of potential GPS spoofing sources revealed no known military operations, electronic warfare activities, or territorial conflicts in the North Atlantic region that would explain the systematic false positioning signals affecting our navigation systems. Commercial shipping traffic in the area reported normal GPS operations with no positioning anomalies, suggesting that the false signals were specifically targeting our vessel rather than affecting general navigation in the region. Analysis of the false GPS signals revealed technical characteristics that exceeded typical military spoofing capabilities, including precision timing, satellite constellation simulation, and signal strength manipulation that suggested advanced electronic warfare technology not associated with known government or military systems. The sophistication of the spoofing operation indicated resources and technical expertise that exceeded capabilities typically available to criminal organizations or non-state actors. During the investigation period, Dion documented additional anomalies in ship systems that appeared to be coordinated with the GPS spoofing activities. Electronic chart displays occasionally showed bathymetric data that did not correspond to known ocean depths in either the false GPS position or the actual celestial navigation position. Weather routing systems received meteorological data that was inconsistent with actual weather conditions observed from the ship, and satellite communication systems experienced intermittent connectivity issues that prevented normal reporting to company headquarters. The pattern of system anomalies suggested comprehensive electronic interference affecting multiple ship systems beyond navigation equipment, indicating a coordinated operation targeting the vessel's electronic infrastructure, rather than random equipment malfunctions or isolated GPS spoofing activities. The scope and sophistication of the interference exceeded known capabilities of conventional electronic warfare systems and suggested involvement of advanced technology not typically associated with maritime operations. Communication with Norwegian Cruise Line headquarters revealed that similar navigation anomalies had been reported by other company vessels operating in various regions of the North Atlantic and Mediterranean during the same time period. However, the reports had been individually classified as equipment malfunctions or operator errors, and no pattern analysis had been conducted to identify systematic electronic interference affecting multiple ships across different geographic areas. Corporate security specialists were dispatched to investigate the navigation anomalies when the scope of the electronic interference became apparent through coordination between multiple vessel reports. The investigation revealed evidence of systematic electronic surveillance and interference targeting civilian cruise ships operating in international waters, suggesting organized activities with unclear motivations and unknown responsible parties. The investigation team discovered that the electronic interference was not random, but followed patterns that suggested intelligence gathering activities focused on cruise ship operations, passenger manifests, and vessel routing information. The false GPS signals were designed to force ships to reveal their actual positions through use of backup navigation methods while simultaneously gathering data about vessel capabilities, crew procedures, and security responses to electronic warfare scenarios. Analysis of communication intercepts revealed that data about ship operations, passenger information, and crew procedures was being transmitted to unknown recipients during periods of electronic interference, suggesting that the GPS spoofing was part of comprehensive intelligence collection operations targeting civilian maritime operations. The scope and sophistication of the activities suggested state-level resources and capabilities rather than criminal or terrorist organizations. Federal maritime security agencies were notified when the investigation revealed evidence of systematic intelligence gathering operations targeting civilian vessels in international waters. The case was classified under national security protocols, and detailed information about the investigation findings was restricted to authorized personnel with appropriate security clearances for maritime intelligence matters. Enhanced security protocols were implemented throughout the Norwegian Cruise Line fleet, including upgraded electronic warfare detection equipment, improved communication encryption systems, and enhanced crew training for responding to navigation system anomalies that might indicate hostile electronic interference. Regular security briefings were established to keep navigation officers informed about emerging electronic threats and appropriate response procedures. The official incident report classified the navigation anomalies as resolved through enhanced security measures and improved equipment capabilities, but specific details about the investigation findings and responsible parties were not disclosed in public documentation. Navigation officers received additional training in traditional positioning methods and procedures for detecting and responding to electronic warfare activities, targeting civilian vessels. Dion completed his assignment aboard the Norwegian Epic without additional navigation anomalies, though enhanced security protocols remained in effect throughout subsequent voyages. His documentation of the initial GPS discrepancies and systematic recording of related system anomalies provided crucial evidence for the investigation and contributed to development of improved detection procedures for electronic interference targeting cruise ship operations. The case highlighted vulnerabilities in civilian maritime navigation systems that rely heavily on electronic positioning technologies without adequate backup procedures for scenarios involving sophisticated electronic warfare activities. Traditional navigation skills, including celestial positioning and dead reckoning calculations, proved essential for maintaining safe navigation when electronic systems were compromised by hostile interference. For navigation officers working aboard civilian vessels, the incident demonstrates the importance of maintaining proficiency in traditional navigation methods as backup procedures for electronic system failures or interference scenarios. Regular practice with sextants, celestial calculations, and manual positioning techniques provides essential capabilities when primary navigation systems are compromised by equipment failures or hostile electronic activities. Current maritime navigation regulations assume that GPS and electronic positioning systems provide reliable accuracy for civilian vessel operations in international waters. When these assumptions prove incorrect due to electronic warfare activities or sophisticated interference operations, existing navigation procedures may not provide adequate protection for vessel safety and operational security. The investigation into systematic electronic interference targeting civilian cruise ships continues under federal maritime security oversight, with ongoing monitoring of navigation systems and communication equipment to detect emerging threats and develop appropriate countermeasures. While specific details remain classified, the incident established precedents for addressing electronic warfare threats against civilian maritime operations and implementing enhanced security protocols for cruise ship fleet operations. Navigation officers throughout the cruise industry received updated training materials and enhanced security awareness briefings following the incident, though specific details about the electronic interference capabilities and responsible parties remained classified under national security protocols. The case demonstrated that civilian maritime operations face evolving security threats that require continuous adaptation of navigation procedures and security measures to maintain safe and secure vessel operations in international waters. 11 years working as a food and beverage operations manager for Celebrity Cruises taught me that main dining room service follows precise scheduling with consistent menu cycles, staffing rotations, and guest seating arrangements that create predictable dining experiences throughout each sailing. Modern cruise ships coordinate complex food service operations involving thousands of meals daily, multiple dining venues, and sophisticated inventory management systems that ensure consistent quality and service standards. When operational anomalies occur in dining service, they typically result from kitchen equipment malfunctions, staff scheduling conflicts, or supply chain disruptions that can be identified and resolved through standard operational procedures. The Celebrity Constellation maintains exemplary food service records with experienced culinary teams and advanced kitchen management systems that deliver exceptional dining experiences for over 3,000 passengers daily. What Kendricks Rodriguez experienced during our Mediterranean cruise in August 2024 challenged every assumption I held about dining service operations and raised questions about temporal consistency that continue to influence my understanding of cruise ship operational protocols. Kendricks booked a standard balcony stateroom for a 10-day Mediterranean cruise departing from Rome, traveling solo as part of a European vacation following his recent retirement from a career in aerospace engineering. His passenger profile indicated moderate cruise experience with 3 previous sailings, suggesting familiarity with ship dining procedures and standard service expectations. He selected traditional late dining in the main restaurant with assigned seating at table 34, second seating scheduled for 8:30 each evening throughout the cruise. On the 5th evening of the sailing, while the ship was docked in Barcelona with optional shore excursions and onboard dining service continuing for passengers remaining aboard, Kendricks reported to the main dining room for his scheduled 8:30 dinner reservation. The dining room appeared normally configured with standard table settings, appropriate lighting, and regular staffing levels consistent with typical evening service operations during port days when approximately 60% of passengers choose to dine on shore. Kendricks was seated at his assigned table 34 by the maitre d' and presented with the evening's menu featuring Mediterranean specialties designed to complement the ship's current itinerary and port destinations. The menu included appetizers, soups, salads, main courses, and desserts with wine pairings recommended by the sommelier staff. Service proceeded normally with bread service, beverage orders, and appetizer presentations following standard Celebrity Cruises dining protocols. The evening's conversation at table 34 included discussion of shore excursion experiences in Barcelona, plans for upcoming ports in the French Riviera, and general cruise experiences among the 8 passengers assigned to the table. Kendricks participated in the social atmosphere while enjoying the meal service and wine selections recommended by the dining room staff. The dinner concluded around 10:15 with coffee and dessert service, after which passengers typically dispersed to evening entertainment or returned to their staterooms. However, when Kendricks returned to his stateroom following dinner and began preparing for sleep, he noticed that his stateroom clock displayed 7:45 rather than the expected time of approximately 10:30 after completing dinner service. Initially assuming a malfunction with the digital clock display, he checked his personal watch and found that it also indicated 7:45, suggesting that somehow nearly 3 hours had passed during what he remembered as a normal 2-hour dining experience. Kendricks contacted guest services to inquire about potential time zone changes or ship clock adjustments that might explain the temporal discrepancy he was experiencing. However, guest services confirmed that no time changes were scheduled during the Barcelona port call, and ship clocks maintained consistent Mediterranean time throughout the evening. The discrepancy between his memory of dinner service duration and the actual elapsed time remained unexplained. Concerned about potential medical issues that might affect his perception of time or memory, Kendricks decided to return to the main dining room to verify whether dinner service was still in progress and confirm the actual time through observation of ongoing operations. When he reached the dining room at approximately 8 o'clock according to his watch, he found the restaurant configured for evening service with guests being seated for dinner. The maitre d' approached Kendricks and escorted him to table 34, where he found the same 7 passengers who had shared his dinner table earlier in the evening. However, these individuals showed no recognition of having previously dined together and engaged in conversation topics that were identical to the discussions from the earlier dinner service. The menu presented was the same Mediterranean specialties he had ordered and consumed less than an hour previously. Kendricks initially assumed he was experiencing some form of medical emergency affecting his memory or perception, and decided to participate in the dinner service while carefully observing details to determine if his experience represented confusion, medical issues, or unusual circumstances beyond his understanding. The service proceeded exactly as he remembered from the earlier dinner, with identical food presentations, wine selections, and conversation topics among his table mates. During the repeated dinner service, Kendricks attempted to engage other passengers in conversation about their previous dining experience, but they showed no awareness of having participated in an earlier identical dinner service. When he mentioned specific conversation topics from the previous meal, the other passengers responded as if hearing these topics for the first time, and proceeded to discuss them in exactly the same manner as during the earlier service. The food service, beverage presentations, and staff interactions followed identical patterns to the previous dinner experience, including specific timing of course presentations, particular wine recommendations from the sommelier, and even identical jokes and comments from the serving staff. The level of precise repetition exceeded normal service consistency and suggested exact duplication rather than similar professional service standards. I became aware of Kendricks' situation when he approached me in the dining room during the repeated service to report his concerns about experiencing what appeared to be identical dinner service for the second time in the same evening. His demeanor appeared calm and rational, suggesting genuine confusion rather than intoxication or medical distress. However, his account of previously completing the same dinner service was inconsistent with dining room operations, as evening service had just commenced according to standard scheduling. Verification of dining room operations confirmed that first seating had concluded normally at 7:30, and second seating had begun at 8 o'clock following standard service protocols. Kitchen logs showed normal food preparation and service timing with no anomalies in meal production or staff scheduling that would explain duplicated service experiences. Kendricks' account of participating in identical dinner service twice in the same evening was not supported by operational records or staff observations. However, when I reviewed Kendricks' dining history in the ship's passenger services database, I discovered unusual anomalies in his meal service records that could not be explained through normal operational procedures. The system showed that he had been charged twice for the same evening's dinner service, with identical menu selections, wine choices, and service charges recorded at 2 different times, separated by approximately 45 minutes. The duplicate charges appeared in the ship's point-of-sale system with identical transaction details, suggesting that Kendricks had indeed participated in 2 separate but identical dining experiences during the same evening. However, dining room capacity and seating assignments made it impossible for the same passenger to occupy the same table twice during the same service period without displacing other assigned guests. Investigation of the dining room's computerized seating system revealed additional anomalies that supported Kendricks' account, while defying logical explanation. The system showed that table 34 had been simultaneously occupied by 2 different seating arrangements. During second seating, with Kendricks appearing in both configurations along with different combinations of passengers assigned to the remaining seats. Security camera footage from the dining room provided partial confirmation of Kendricks' unusual experience while raising additional questions about the nature of the temporal anomalies he was experiencing. The recorded surveillance showed Kendricks entering the dining room at 8 o'clock and being seated at table 34 with 7 other passengers for normal dinner service. However, the same cameras also showed footage of Kendricks completing an identical dinner service at the same table with the same passengers approximately 1 hour earlier. The dual surveillance records appeared to show Kendricks participating in simultaneous dinner experiences at the same location with the same people, which represented a physical impossibility under normal operational conditions. Technical analysis of the recording equipment revealed no evidence of digital manipulation, timestamp errors, or equipment malfunctions that would explain the duplicate footage of identical dining experiences. Medical staff conducted a comprehensive evaluation of Kendricks to determine if his experience could be explained by neurological conditions, medication effects, or psychological factors that might cause temporal disorientation or memory duplication. The examination revealed no evidence of medical conditions affecting cognitive function, no medications that would cause temporal perception disorders, and no psychological symptoms indicating mental health issues that would explain perception of repeated experiences. During the medical evaluation, Kendricks provided detailed accounts of both dinner experiences that demonstrated remarkable consistency in specific details, including exact conversation topics, precise food presentations, and particular staff interactions that exceeded normal memory capabilities for routine dining experiences. His ability to predict specific events during the second dinner service suggested genuine participation in repeated experiences rather than confused or fabricated memories. The investigation expanded to include analysis of ship systems that might explain temporal anomalies or environmental factors that could create unusual perceptual experiences in the dining room area. Technical specialists examined electrical systems, ventilation equipment, and electronic infrastructure to identify potential sources of electromagnetic interference or environmental conditions that might affect passenger perception of time or sequence of events. During this technical analysis, specialists discovered unusual energy readings in the main dining room that occurred during the time frame of Kendricks's repeated dinner experiences. The readings suggested localized temporal field fluctuations that did not correspond to any known ship systems or environmental phenomena. These energy patterns appeared to be concentrated around table 34 and occurred at regular intervals that coincided with the timing of Kendricks's duplicated dining experiences. However, the technical team could not provide explanations for how such energy fluctuations might create the comprehensive repeated experiences that Kendricks described, including physical food consumption, social interactions with other passengers, and integration with normal dining room operations. The energy readings provided potential evidence of unusual environmental conditions, but did not account for the physical and operational aspects of the repeated dining experiences. Corporate headquarters assigned temporal anomaly specialists when the investigation revealed evidence of localized time distortion effects in passenger areas of the ship. These consultants had experience with similar phenomena reported in other industries and provided expertise in analyzing unusual temporal experiences and their potential causes. However, their investigation findings remained classified under proprietary research protocols. The official incident report classified Kendricks's experience as a unique passenger incident with contributing factors that could not be determined based on available conventional analysis methods. Enhanced monitoring equipment was installed in the main dining room to detect any unusual energy fluctuations or temporal anomalies that might affect future passenger experiences. Additional staff training was implemented to address passenger reports of unusual experiences and provide appropriate support procedures. Following the incident, Kendricks completed his cruise without additional temporal anomalies, though he reported occasional brief moments of déjà vu during routine shipboard activities. His dining experiences returned to normal patterns, with no further evidence of repeated or duplicated service encounters. However, the monitoring equipment continued to detect occasional energy fluctuations in the dining room area that correlated with minor temporal inconsistencies in other passenger experiences. The case highlighted limitations in standard operational analysis when passenger experiences involve phenomena that challenge basic assumptions about temporal consistency and linear progression of events. Cruise ship operations assume that passenger activities occur in predictable temporal sequences that can be documented and verified through conventional monitoring systems. When passenger reports describe experiences that violate these assumptions, existing operational frameworks provide limited guidance for appropriate responses. For passengers experiencing unusual temporal phenomena during cruise ship activities, the case demonstrates the importance of documenting specific details about timing, locations, and observable events while seeking appropriate support from ship personnel. While the underlying causes of such experiences remain unexplained, passenger safety and satisfaction can be maintained through proper documentation and professional support services. Current cruise ship operational protocols assume that passenger experiences occur within normal temporal frameworks, where events progress in linear sequences that can be verified through standard monitoring and documentation systems. When passenger reports suggest experiences that challenge these assumptions, existing operational procedures may not provide adequate explanations or appropriate response frameworks for managing unusual temporal phenomena. The monitoring equipment installed in the main dining room continues to detect occasional temporal anomalies, and research into these phenomena remains ongoing under corporate research and development programs. While specific details about the investigation findings remain proprietary, the incident contributed to enhanced understanding of unusual passenger experiences and development of improved support procedures for managing reports of temporal inconsistencies in cruise ship operations. 13 years working as a senior medical technician for Princess Cruises taught me that ship medical operations follow strict protocols with comprehensive documentation requirements, regulated medication storage procedures, and mandatory reporting systems for all passenger and crew medical incidents. Modern cruise ships maintain sophisticated medical facilities staffed by qualified physicians, registered nurses, and certified medical technicians trained to handle emergency situations ranging from routine illnesses to life-threatening injuries requiring helicopter evacuation. When medical emergencies occur, detailed records document patient care, treatment procedures, and outcomes, with copies forwarded to corporate medical departments and regulatory authorities for review and compliance verification. The Grand Princess maintains exemplary medical service records with state-of-the-art equipment and experienced medical staff who have successfully managed thousands of patient encounters throughout international waters. What I discovered during our Pacific coastal cruise in December 2023 challenged every assumption I held about medical facility operations and revealed systematic violations of maritime medical protocols that had been concealed for months through fraudulent documentation and corporate negligence. Jaylyn Torres began her assignment as night shift medical technician aboard the Grand Princess in November 2023, working midnight to 8 shifts in the medical center while completing her nursing degree through distance education programs. Her duties included patient monitoring for overnight medical cases, medication administration under physician supervision, medical equipment maintenance, and documentation of all medical activities according to Princess Cruises' medical protocols and international maritime health regulations. The medical center on the Grand Princess operates as a fully equipped facility capable of handling serious medical emergencies, including cardiac events, surgical procedures, and trauma cases requiring immediate intervention. The facility includes examination rooms, treatment areas, a pharmacy, diagnostic equipment, and a specialized medical storage area that maintains controlled temperatures for medications, blood products, and biological specimens requiring refrigeration or freezing. On her third week working night shifts, Jaylyn discovered unusual activities in the medical storage area that appeared to violate established protocols for patient care documentation and deceased passenger handling procedures. During routine equipment checks around 3 a.m, she observed Dr. Marcus Kellerman, the ship's senior medical officer, conducting unauthorized examinations of patients in the medical storage area who appeared to be deceased based on their lack of response to external stimuli and absence of vital signs. Standard medical protocols require immediate notification of ship, administration, and corporate medical departments when passenger or crew deaths occur, followed by preservation of remains in appropriate facilities until arrangements can be made for repatriation at the next suitable port. However, Dr. Kellerman appeared to be conducting detailed post-mortem examinations and tissue sample collections without proper authorization or documentation, suggesting unauthorized medical research or evidence tampering related to patient deaths. Jaylin initially assumed that Dr. Kellerman was conducting authorized medical examinations required by maritime law or corporate protocols. But when she reviewed medical center documentation, she found no records of patient deaths, post-mortem examination orders, or tissue sample collection authorizations that would justify the activities she had observed. The absence of proper documentation suggested either serious procedural violations or deliberate concealment of medical activities. The following night, Jaylin positioned herself to observe Dr. Kellerman's activities more comprehensively while maintaining her regular duties to avoid suspicion about her increased attention to the medical storage area. Her observations revealed systematic post-mortem examinations of multiple deceased individuals, detailed tissue sample collection using surgical instruments, and photography of examination findings, using equipment not normally available in the ship's medical facility. Dr. Kellerman's activities followed methodical procedures that suggested extensive experience with post-mortem examinations and tissue analysis, indicating knowledge and training beyond typical cruise ship medical requirements. The examinations focused on specific organs and tissue samples that were carefully preserved and labeled according to protocols not familiar to Jaylin from her medical training or experience with standard cruise ship medical procedures. Most disturbing was Dr. Kellerman's use of specialized equipment, including electron microscopes, tissue analysis instruments, and data storage devices that were not part of the medical center's standard inventory and appeared to have been brought aboard privately for unauthorized research purposes. The sophistication of the equipment suggested substantial financial investment and technical expertise that exceeded normal cruise ship medical capabilities. During her observations, Jaylin discovered that the medical storage area contained more deceased individuals than should be present based on medical center records and ship administration reports. The official documentation showed no passenger or crew deaths during the current sailing, yet she counted at least 6 bodies in various stages of examination and tissue sample collection, suggesting systematic concealment of deaths and unauthorized retention of remains. The concealment of passenger deaths represented serious violations of maritime safety regulations, public health protocols, and international law requirements for reporting deaths in international waters. Cruise ships are required to immediately notify flag state authorities, port authorities, and corporate headquarters when deaths occur, followed by proper preservation and repatriation of remains according to established procedures. Jaylin attempted to review medical center computer systems to identify the deceased individuals and determine the circumstances of their deaths, but discovered that Dr. Kellerman had implemented unauthorized access controls that prevented other medical staff from accessing patient records and examination findings related to the concealed cases. The restricted access suggested deliberate efforts to prevent discovery of the unauthorized activities and cover up the true scope of the medical irregularities. Unable to access electronic medical records through normal channels, Jaylin conducted physical searches of medical center files and discovered handwritten documentation hidden in Dr. Kellerman's personal office that provided detailed accounts of patient deaths, post-mortem examination findings, and tissue analysis results. The documents revealed that at least 12 passengers and crew members had died during the current sailing under circumstances that had been deliberately concealed from ship administration and corporate medical oversight. The concealed deaths included elderly passengers who had died from apparent natural causes, crew members who had died from workplace accidents, and passengers who had died from medical emergencies, including cardiac events and respiratory failures. However, Dr. Kellerman's examination findings suggested that several deaths may have resulted from exposure to unknown toxic substances or infectious agents that required further investigation through tissue analysis and laboratory testing. Most concerning were Dr. Kellerman's notes indicating that some deaths appeared to be linked to contaminated food or water supplies, suggesting possible deliberate poisoning or accidental exposure to toxic substances through ship systems or food service operations. The pattern of symptoms and post-mortem findings suggested systematic exposure rather than isolated incidents, indicating potential threats to passenger and crew safety throughout the vessel. Jalen realized that Dr. Kellerman's concealment of deaths and unauthorized medical research represented not only serious protocol violations, but potential cover-up of criminal activity that might be ongoing and threatening other passengers and crew members. The scope and sophistication of the concealment operation suggested coordination with other individuals who had provided resources, equipment, and logistical support for the unauthorized activities. Unable to report her discoveries through normal medical center channels due to Dr. Kellerman's control of communication systems and documentation procedures, Jalen decided to contact ship security directly to report the medical irregularities and request immediate investigation of the concealed deaths and unauthorized research activities. However, when she attempted to contact security personnel, she discovered that her access to ship communication systems had been restricted, preventing her from reaching security or administration staff. The communication restrictions suggested that Dr. Kellerman was aware of her investigations and had implemented measures to prevent her from reporting the medical irregularities to ship authorities. The systematic blocking of her access to communication systems indicated technical capabilities and administrative authority that exceeded normal medical officer privileges, suggesting collaboration with ship personnel in other departments. Jalen decided to directly approach the ship's captain during his morning bridge inspection to report the medical center irregularities and request immediate investigation of the concealed deaths and unauthorized research activities. However, when she reached the bridge at 6 in the morning, she found that the captain and senior officers had been informed that she was experiencing psychological difficulties that affected her judgment and reliability as a medical technician. Dr. Kellerman had apparently provided the ship's administration with fabricated reports describing Jalen as emotionally unstable, prone to hallucinations, and unreliable in her medical duties, effectively discrediting her credibility before she could report the medical irregularities. The preemptive character assassination suggested systematic preparation for preventing discovery of the unauthorized activities and deflecting attention from the medical center violations. Despite the attempts to discredit her, Jalen provided the captain with detailed documentation of her observations, including photographs of the unauthorized equipment, copies of the concealed medical records, and physical evidence of the tissue samples and examination materials that Dr. Kellerman had been collecting. The evidence was comprehensive enough to warrant immediate investigation regardless of questions about her psychological state or reliability. The captain ordered immediate security investigation of the medical center and placed Dr. Kellerman under temporary suspension, pending review of the allegations and evidence that Jalen had provided. Security personnel conducted comprehensive searches of the medical facility and discovered the concealed remains, unauthorized equipment, and extensive documentation of post-mortem examinations that had been conducted without proper authorization or reporting. Investigation of Dr. Kellerman's background revealed that he had been terminated from previous medical positions for conducting unauthorized research on deceased patients and had falsified credentials to obtain employment with Princess Cruises. His medical license had been suspended in multiple jurisdictions for ethical violations related to unauthorized experimentation and improper handling of human remains. The unauthorized research operation was part of a broader scheme involving the sale of human tissue samples and organ harvesting from deceased cruise ship passengers for black market medical research and transplant operations. Dr. Kellerman had been working with criminal organizations that provided specialized equipment and arranged for covert transportation of tissue samples and organs to international buyers willing to pay substantial amounts for human biological materials. Federal maritime law enforcement authorities arrested Dr. Kellerman and several accomplices, including crew members, who had provided logistical support for the organ harvesting operation, and shoreside associates who had arranged for the specialized equipment and transportation of stolen biological materials. The investigation revealed that the criminal operation had been active for over 2 years across multiple cruise ships and had victimized hundreds of deceased passengers and crew members. The case resulted in comprehensive changes to cruise ship medical protocols, including enhanced background investigation procedures for medical personnel, improved oversight of medical facility operations, mandatory reporting systems for all patient deaths, and regular audits of medical equipment and supplies to prevent unauthorized activities. Corporate medical departments implemented real-time monitoring systems to ensure immediate notification of medical emergencies and deaths. Enhanced security measures were established for medical storage areas, including restricted access controls, surveillance monitoring, and regular inspections by independent medical personnel to prevent concealment of deaths and unauthorized research activities. Medical staff received additional training in recognizing and reporting suspicious medical activities and violations of patient care protocols. The official investigation report resulted in federal prosecution of the organ harvesting network under racketeering statutes, maritime law violations, and international trafficking regulations. Dr. Kellerman and his accomplices received substantial prison sentences and financial penalties that established legal precedents for prosecuting criminal medical activities aboard cruise ships in international waters. For passengers and crew members concerned about medical facility integrity, Jalen's discovery highlights the importance of reporting unusual activities or suspected violations of medical protocols to ship security and corporate authorities. The complexity of cruise ship medical operations requires vigilant oversight and transparency to prevent criminal exploitation of vulnerable passengers and ensure compliance with established safety and ethical standards. Current maritime medical regulations assume that cruise ship medical facilities operate under qualified supervision with appropriate oversight and documentation procedures that ensure patient safety and ethical treatment. When these assumptions prove incorrect due to criminal activity or systematic violations, existing regulatory frameworks may not provide adequate protection for passengers and crew members who depend on ship medical services. The enhanced oversight procedures implemented following Jalen's discovery continue to monitor cruise ship medical operations for compliance with established protocols and prevention of unauthorized activities. While specific details about ongoing security measures remain confidential, the case contributed to improved medical facility safety and established stronger protections for passengers requiring medical care during cruise ship operations. The criminal network responsible for the organ harvesting operation received comprehensive prosecution under federal maritime law and international trafficking statutes, with convictions resulting in significant prison sentences and financial penalties. The case established important legal precedents for prosecuting complex criminal enterprises that exploit cruise ship operations and demonstrated the effectiveness of whistleblower protections for employees who report serious violations of passenger safety and medical ethics protocols aboard cruise ships operating in international waters.